The day before Thanksgiving in 1971, a man identifying himself as Dan Cooper bought a plane ticket from Portland to Seattle. He hijacked the plane, claiming he had a bomb in his briefcase and demanded $200,000 and 4 parachutes. He jumped out of the plane with the money and the bomb somewhere over the Pacific Northwest, never to be seen again. The FBI claims to have investigated over 1,000 people, including dozens of deathbed confessions. In 2016, 45 years after the hijacking, the FBI suspended its investigation of the case. While the FBI is no longer looking for DB Cooper, there is a community of people who are trying to solve the case on their own. Welcome to the Cooper Vortex. For this episode, I asked around if anyone would like to do a book review series on the show. No one jumped at the chance, but I did find one gal brave enough that also happens to have a large Cooper library. So I bullied her into doing it. She is a nuclear medicine technologist by day and animal lover by night. She loves fashion and likes her money right where she can see it, hanging in her closet. Halloween is her favorite holiday, but you may recognize her from the CooperCon 2024 photos as the model holding Barb Dayton's ashes. Enjoy the first part of our book review series with my good friend, Nicole Legg. All right, Nicole, how did you get into DB Cooper? When was the first time you heard about that?
Unsolved Mysteries. I think that's like almost everyone's answer. But I watched it live in 88, I think.
I think it is 88.
Yeah, so I watched it and I just was fascinated with it. So then on, I'd watch whatever I could about it, whatever it came on TV. And then I found your podcast. And then that's when I got really into it, because before then I was kind of like, oh, there's not a whole lot out there. And that's how I got in.
How did you find the podcast?
Oh, so during COVID, I had tons of time to myself after work. So I go on walks and I was just searching through podcasts and I was like, I wonder if there's a DB Cooper one. So I searched and like a couple came up and I was like, that one's not so good. I'd listened to like 10 minutes. I was like, I don't think that's right. And then I found yours and I was like, oh, I think I can get into this.
Did you start from the beginning or did you start from the latest episode?
So I started with Tim Collins. And so I was like, it's Weber. It's Weber.
He's very convincing.
He's so good.
He left my house. I was like, it's Weber.
Right. It's Weber. It's done. Case solved. Why do we need to do any more? But then I sucked Brad into it. And so he started listening to. And then I gave him a list. I was like, no, you have to listen to this one and then this one, because this is going to give you the basics of the case. And then this one's going to give you all the other stuff that you need. And then he got sucked in.
Because obviously you guys are in the Vortex because I met you at CooperCon.
Yes. We are definitely in the Vortex. Anything we can get our hands on, we are all about.
And you've been to multiple CooperCons at this point.
2. Yes. 2 of them last year. Well, 2023 and 2024. Yeah.
Are you going this year?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, that's my plan, unless something dramatic happens, that's my plan.
What was your favorite part of CooperCon?
This year? Oh gosh, everything. I mean, the socials.
Of course.
Are fantastic. Let's see. I loved Drew Beeson because it's the first time seeing him in person. So that was fantastic to see that. Dr. Karen Humes was amazing. And the flight path. Like, I think we've got that settled now. I don't think there should be any more arguments about that.
We'll see about that.
Colleen Fitzpatrick. Wow. It was also good. Tom always comes in and just totally blows our mind. Like, I thought it was all amazing. We had the parachutist. That was fun. Seeing all of the Mike Davis and everyone. Like, that was a blast. Like, Mike had like some of the best lines the whole CooperCon.
I still can't get over that moment when all 3 of them are like, there's a 0% chance he's a no-pull.
Yes. So I wonder what Dead Camp thinks about that now.
That would be interesting. I guess the argument is still like, well, they're wrong. He didn't pull his
I guess kind of like the Westerly.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
one of
like
those things
the
where a lack of evidence is not evidence, but
right.
in my opinion, a lack of evidence is proof that he survived the jump.
It seems pretty simple. Like I know nothing about parachutes, but that seemed pretty simple. I watched a demonstration right there. All I had to do was pull.
I also know nothing about parachutes, so we can both be confident in this that he
Oh yeah,
absolutely survived the jump.
he totally did. And I mean, I think it would be pretty simple to get on. I don't know where a packing cart is, but I think I could have put that on. I think I could have figured it out. Like, just jump and pull, and I think I'll be okay. So I think he survived.
All right, well, the reason I got you on the show is I sort of reached out publicly, like, hey, I want to do a book review show. How many of you clowns have read a bunch of these books?
Mhm.
And there weren't a lot of responses. It was more like you're the only one that would read all those books. But I think I found someone that's read quite a few of them and is willing to read even more with me. So
Yes.
we'll do this little book review series. What was
Yeah.
I guess the first book that I read on this case was Skyjack. What was the very first book you ever read on the case?
Mine was Bruce's. Mine was Bruce's, I think. I think it was Bruce. Now that I think about it, it might have been Skyjack. It might have been Bruce. I can't remember. They were either back to back, one before the other, but they were read at this around the same time.
Yeah, because mine in real quick succession was Skyjack, and then I was like, well, obviously now I have to read
Mhm.
Into the Blast. Read that, and then got the forums, and then it was like, well, you need to read Bruce's book. So I was like, okay, well, I guess
Yeah.
I'll get that. So those three
Yeah.
I read just like bang, bang, bang. I think the fourth one was Bill Rollins' book because I liked the cover when I was looking at
Oh, it's such a good cover. I
favorite.
bought that after I met him. It's such a good cover. I don't think it's his suspect, but it's a really good cover. I have it right here.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. Because is it Seattle that's the
The
Emerald
Emerald
City?
City. Yeah.
Yeah. So I like his play on that.
He told it
Um,
was like his niece or something designed that for him. I forgot. So Bill, if I
oh
messed that
wow.
up a little bit, I apologize.
He's so nice. He's such a nice person.
Oh, and he has like the greatest like Boston accent, New
No,
England
he's so
accent.
good. Yeah, it was fun. We got to not in 2023, um, we were driving back from CooperCon to eat at the across the street from the hotel. And Brad's driving, Brian's in the front seat, and here I am sitting in between Bill Rollins and Mac.
That is so crazy. Mark McNally.
Martin McNally. And my mom texted me at the time and she's asking, I'm like, hang on, mom. I can't really talk right now. We're going to dinner and I'm sitting here beside, a previous skyjacker and an author and a lawyer, and I'll call you back later.
A previous skyjacker. All
But
right,
yeah,
speaking of skyjacking,
yes,
we're going to start our book review series at my beginning, of course, since it's my show.
it is your show.
So, Skyjack.
Yes.
I hadn't read Skyjack since probably 2014 or 2015, maybe.
Wow. So way before me.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was definitely good for a refresher. There were times where somebody had said something and I pulled the book out and flipped through it to read that one specific thing, but I hadn't read it cover to cover in so long. And the one thing I want to say is it absolutely holds up.
It does. It really does. It's a really good book. I forgot how much I liked it and how well it covered some of the first people that were like the main suspects. Um, I thought it was really, I liked it a lot. I forgot how much I liked it.
Yeah, I
And
forgot
now
how
that
many suspects are weaved into it.
McCoy, Barb, Weber, LD Cooper at the end.
LD Cooper at the end. Well, that's an afterword. So What the
That's true.
one thing that I really liked is I think it's the first sentence of the afterword where he's like, you know, the scariest part about releasing this book is this case could be solved in the time it takes my book to be released.
Yes, yes.
And I'd never thought about that before, but that's probably why Ryan is so angry at Dan Greider for solving the case, is because his book's not out yet and Dan already solved it.
He solved it. I mean, he's got the proof right there.
Right. So now you don't need Ryan's book at
No,
all. It's
no. I mean,
closed.
it's got the D rings, it's got everything we were expecting.
But then that did happen to him when this LD Cooper thing came out, which
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that kind of helped his book because it wasn't a definitive, this case is closed.
No, and I think, because like he went into it with Skip Porteous, I think thinking that it was Kenny Christensen.
Oh, absolutely.
So I like the evolution of him realizing, oh, there's more people. He lists some of the copycats, um, which I thought was really interesting to read about them again. And he talks about the people in the drop zone, which I totally forgot that he totally name drops
He
all the
does name
people.
drop some people that I've chosen to respect their privacy. Uh, it's interesting that they're in there.
Yeah, he definitely name drops. He spills some tea for sure. Um, that I was like, oh, okay. I don't know if I needed to know that part, but that's okay.
He definitely has sort of a journalistic style of when I write this, I don't really care what you think of it. I'm telling the truth, whether or not you like what I wrote or not.
That's exactly what it is. Yes, because I was reading some parts and I was like, oh, that's right. That's a little hard. That's harsh.
Because he tends to describe people in a way that's like they're either super interesting and accomplished, or let me point out all the flaws of this person.
Yes, and let me tell you all their family drama as well.
Yeah. Yeah, some of the descriptions of people, I was like, I'm not sure I needed to know that about them for
Yes.
this small character in this book.
Yeah, I don't think it's moving the case forward knowing about this.
But he has such a descriptive writing style. It's like the mustachioed man got out of his red Ford Falcon and I heard the gravel crunch on the ground. It's like,
He's
wow,
good.
he puts you right there.
He really does. He's a really good writer. He said it took 4 years to write the book. I actually Googled him um, to see what else he had done. And I think he's living in Mexico now with
Last
his,
time I talked to him, he was in Mexico.
yeah.
I've been trying for probably 5 years to get him on the show.
Okay.
And I had one Zoom call with him where he was like, "Oh, I forgot we were supposed to record tonight."
Oh,
But then we talked for like 30 minutes and he was like, "Oh, damn, you're getting me interested in this again."
oh, so he's fallen out of the vortex.
Yes. I'm sure he keeps tabs on it a little bit, but he's not checking it incessantly like I am.
Yeah, like most of us are. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I totally Googled him. I found out because I'm 3 days older than him. We are we were born the exact same year, 3 days apart. So I was like, oh. But in it, I feel like too, this time reading, having been to CooperCon, meeting some of the people that's in the book, really getting to know a lot of these people a little bit more. I felt more connected to it in a way. Like I felt definitely like I got into it more. Definitely
Oh,
made more
me
notes
as
this
well,
time.
because the first time I read it, nobody in the DB Cooper world had ever heard of me. I'd never posted on anything. So I'm
Yeah,
just reading this as a distant observer of this
exactly.
world.
Yes, just a book. And now the second time through, I was like, oh, look, there's Tom. And oh, look, I totally know about this. Oh, yeah, I remember seeing this on one of Ryan's videos.
And because he got information to the FBI files, and because he just is a legit good journalist, there isn't anything where I'm like, okay, that's totally wrong.
No, I couldn't find a whole lot wrong in this one. And I went through it with a highlighter, really checking some things. And there, a few things here or there that I was like, I think Ryan actually clarified on that. But I don't think there was a whole lot wrong on here.
Right, and he didn't look at as many files as Ryan had. Ryan.
Right? How did he get access to the FBI files?
I think he just bullied his way into it with Larry Carr.
Oh,
Larry
wow.
Carr wanted this media exposure, and hey, here's this, sort of esteemed journalist that wants to write a book about this, and I think this could really get some great attention to the case.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I knew he had access, but I couldn't remember how he got access. No, and I loved hearing about the crew, like Captain Scott, like that. His story's amazing. Like he sounds like he was just such an awesome person. All of the crew do. It would be great to have met any of them.
I really wish I could have met Himmelsbach.
He's yes.
Quite the character.
Right. He is. He is. I have Norjack. I haven't read it yet, but I do have Norjack. But he is, he inserts himself into the story, definitely.
It's a shame that he didn't get to see it solved.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I hope at least one of us gets to see it solved.
Me too. And I hope it's me.
Right. I'm starting to lose hope.
And Skyjack talks a lot about Jerry Thomas.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Who is he?
I tried a long time ago to get him on the show, but it just seemed like that was never going to happen. But I'm not even sure if he's around anymore.
Okay.
But he was this fixture in the community that was just constantly like boots on the ground searching was what he wanted everyone to be doing because that's what he was doing.
Yeah. Yeah. He was very interesting. And I think if I can find it, one of my favorite lines from the book was when he was with Brian. And I think when they found out that Jerry had been searching the wrong area the entire time, Brian like just kind of lays out this basically, and I'm paraphrasing, asking Jerry, how does it feel that he's spent all these years searching in the wrong area? I was like, that was a mic drop moment.
Oh yeah. What is your response to that? It's like, oops.
Yeah. How many years was he out there?
20?
Yeah, it said he was just a survivalist. But I did make notes on him because I was like, Jerry, I don't remember Jerry.
Bruce knew him pretty well.
Yeah. And then I think when Albert Weinberg he talks about coming up with the name Dan Cooper. I forgot about that.
I forgot about that as well.
That was really, and do you still think it's hooked to the comic then?
I want it to be attached to the comic. I don't know if it is at all. I mean, it's
I don't
not
know either.
specific enough
I'm
to
like 50-50 on that. Like, I don't know. I don't know if it is or isn't. I think there's a good argument for both.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Depending on who your suspect is, it could go either way.
The thing I don't like is when you try to make it fit your suspect. So my suspect, he is from Omaha, and he was in the military, but he was stationed in South America. And now I'm like, oh, well, maybe when he was traveling, he was at an Air Force base and somebody else had dropped that comic off and he was a big comic book fan. And so he picked it up and read it. And it's like, you don't have to make the comic book fit.
No.
That's not evidence of anything.
No. He could have just been a name he picked on his way to the airport or just seen someone in line in front of him and just taken someone else's name.
Oh, yeah. I do
just
think it is interesting that he says Dan and not Daniel.
that it, I was thinking about on the ride home today, why he picked Dan and not Daniel. And I don't know. I can't figure that one out.
Because usually when someone asks you to state your name, you're going to give your formal name.
Yes, absolutely. Not what your nickname is.
Right.
So yeah, I haven't figured that one out. That one made me think. Tina Bar always makes me think, but the stating of Dan versus Daniel made me think twice about it because I think I was listening to Mike Davis's interview, and he asked him if he was on the airplane, would he stop it or talk to him? And he said, he just kind of totally messed around with him. Hey, Daniel. And that's when it hit me. I was like, oh, wait, he said Dan, not Daniel. I wonder if there's a reason he picked Dan and not Daniel as his name.
Yeah, because of course, it'd be tough to get this information, but if we could go back to 1971 and all the people named Daniel that boarded airplanes, did you give your name as Dan or Daniel?
Right. Maybe he was just Dan. Maybe
That's
that was his
possible.
name.
I have a friend, Robbie, who I was friends with for years and years. And one time I made a joke and being formal and was like, Robert. And he's like, my name's not Robert, it's Robbie. And I was
Right.
like,
Yeah.
your legal name is Robbie. And he's
Yes.
like, yeah. And he pulled out his driver's license. I'd been friends with him for like 5 years at that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. So maybe, I've got some friends who, yes, their name is the shortened version of what the typical name would be because the parents knew that that's what they would get called. So that's what
Right.
they just named them.
Probably not as common, though, for men in their middle ages in 1971, though.
No, they had very proper names. Not.
Oh, yeah. Probably mostly names from the Bible, too.
Yes. Well, Dan.
Yeah. Okay, another interesting thing from
Yes.
Skyjack that I don't think I remembered at all was that goofy picture of Kenny Christensen entering the door with the briefcase and the bag and the black trench coat. In
Yes.
Skyjack, it mentions that he took that on a timer. He took that picture of himself.
That's right. That's right. I totally forgot about that. There was a he's didn't they say that they would kind of didn't Tina or one of them actually know him, Kenny Christensen?
I don't think they knew him. Maybe they knew of him because I think that I can't remember if it's Into the Blast or Skyjack, the interview with Radizak, where he's like, I probably knew his name, but I mean, I didn't work with him.
Was he the one that they would joke around because they knew people had said that he
Yeah, that's what I've heard also, that there was sort of this joke, oh, Kenny is DB Cooper.
yeah, and he would kind of like dress up and play into it,
Right, which
kind of.
totally makes sense if he took that
Yeah.
photo himself, which
Yes.
this isn't hold your phone out and snap a picture of yourself. This is set the phone or set the
Get the
camera
camera.
on the counter, aim it, set the
Right.
timer, go out, walk back in the door looking at the camera,
And hope
and,
you got it.
and hope you got it. And then go develop that film, pay someone to do that, then pick it up a day later and then
Yeah.
look at it and see what the picture looks like.
And then see, I wonder how many times he had to do that. I wonder if he got it on the first try.
But yeah, when I read that, I was like, okay, then that story about it being a joke is true.
Yeah,
Is
absolutely.
definitely true because it's not like his friend or his buddy took that picture when he was walking home from the hijacking.
No. And he's going to rewear that suit multiple times. Yeah,
Yeah,
no, that was good.
and then he lists names that he's reading from the FBI files randomly,
Yes, yes.
and I was paying very close attention to those names.
Me too.
And the only one that really popped for me was Fred Catalano
Yes.
because we were looking for him for a while.
Yeah.
And Marty, especially, it's like there's the Shelton suspect and the Egg Harbor suspect, and we don't know their name. We got to figure out who it is. And boom, it was written right there in
Right in front
Skyjack.
of us.
Were there
No,
any other names that popped out for you?
Just that one, because I think I highlighted them because he was going through the different passengers. He was listing them. And I was like, I wonder if he's listing them in an order for a specific reason or if he's just listing them. And then when he would list the suspects, I too was like, okay, do I know any of these names? And yeah, nobody but Catalano stood out.
But that's so interesting. These names are redacted in the files, but he's looking at unredacted files and then just printing the names in the book randomly.
I mean, I guess he figured if he got to see him, it was fair game.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I wonder, he said it was like a couple of folders that he got, right?
Yeah, I don't think he saw everything.
Definitely not. He didn't look through 900,000 pages
No,
or whatever we have at this point in time.
no. So I guess he just got like the basics of the story of the hijacking. And then I guess maybe some of the first suspects. Was Catalano one of the first ones?
I'm not sure if he was one of the first ones.
Ryan would know.
Yeah. Yeah, he's screaming it at his dashboard right now.
No, but I liked it. But you know what? This book talks about Flo saying that she thinks Tina knows something,
Yep.
which I don't know. It just was a little uncomfortable reading. Like I just felt bad for Tina. Like she's such a hero, and here's Flo kind of throwing her under the bus.
Yeah, that is interesting. And I sort of wonder, like, what was the context she said that in?
Mm-hmm.
And does she believe that she's hiding something as in she's involved, or Cooper told her something and was like, hey, don't mention this part, and she's doing him a favor, so like some whole sort of Stockholm syndrome thing.
Yeah, probably. I would think it would be more the second one than the first one. But I mean, they had hours together talking. But Flo also reacted this hit her very differently than it did anyone else.
Oh yeah.
She was definitely more psychologically damaged from this, I think, than maybe Tina or any of the other passengers. Not that they weren't, but I think she definitely,
Oh,
it
she lost
changed
it
her.
right away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I
then
mean,
Tina bravely was like, "Hey, I'll take this.
yeah. She just was like, I'm out. Peace.
Yeah, I have to go to the cockpit."
Yeah. I'm going to let you handle this. And then she changed her name, right? She was living in South Carolina and
Hmm.
changed her name. So, I mean, it totally affected her entire life. So I think she might just be a little bitter towards everything. So her Dracula sketch is probably just kind of an example of that.
And I've thought about that Dracula sketch, and it's like 15, 16, 17 years later, you're gonna remember that guy?
Yeah,
You
no.
want to describe him again and we'll draw him?
No.
And how many pictures had she been shown from that point?
Even know how they lasted as long as they did. Even though it was just like a couple of years, I think I would have been done after like 6 months, especially if you've only been with them for that, a couple of hours. I think after you showed me a couple and then I've been looking at the sketch as well, I'd be like, I don't think I would have lasted that long.
Yeah, I don't think I really want to participate very much at all.
No.
Be like, I told you that day everything I know.
Mhm.
Now you guys can leave me alone. I know nothing about this.
Yes, yes. I think I would have been a horrible eyewitness. I'd have been like, it was a man. It was a man in the back. That's all I know.
Yeah, and then a huge community develops around this. And then those people are contacting you all the time.
Right?
Will you
Be
just
like,
look at this one picture?
yes, it's a man.
If the number of times I've heard someone say, if I could only show Tina the picture of my suspect.
Yeah, still to this day,
Yeah.
to this day. And you wonder, like, have you been listening to the Cooper Vortex? Have you been watching? Have you been watching Ryan's video? I think you would know. They wouldn't remember.
But the facts in the book are legit.
They are. They really are. And he's got some really good ones. Like I said, I had totally forgotten. The ones about Barb, I loved reading about, I love Barb. Um, just all of them. The Weber ones and Joe, poor Joe, and Joe's friend that he went out to see that was just like, all these, what was on the TV or something, or what was he? Where was it? It was towards the back when she was trying to say that. I highlighted it. Oh, I have it in my book here. Let's see. But remember, he was the super crazy guy that she was like, we were in such and such town. And was it Weber who
Oh,
also,
James Earl Ray. Is that who you're talking
yes,
about?
yes. And
Wayne's
then,
cellmate?
yes. And then she had name dropped someone and he had went out to talk to someone. And the longer he was there, the more it just like seemed a
Oh,
disaster.
yeah, yeah, yes, yes. Bob Noss.
That's it.
Yeah, that one got real weird real quick. And I have I have definitely put myself in that exact same situation where I am now either in somebody's house or car and they are telling me insane, crazy stuff, and I'm like, am I in danger?
How do I exit this very quickly? Yeah, that one went downhill really fast. And I was like, okay. Because I got excited there for a second. I was like, oh, well, maybe this is on to something. I don't remember this. And I was like, oh, no, nope, nope. But that's definitely a friend of Joe.
Absolutely. And Joe, just like you read in the book, she has this ability to whatever is new in the case. If there's this thing came out that said, oh, yeah, it turns out that DB Cooper was wearing a rainbow wristband. Joe would instantly be like, Dwayne had all of these rainbow wristbands and he loved rainbows. Rainbows were his thing.
Yeah. She really, how do you think she had access to the FBI files? Do you think she had it in?
I don't know. The Joe Weber, Dwayne Weber thing is so interesting and crazy, and I bought into it a little bit, and then I was like with
Yeah.
everyone else, like obviously it's not Dwayne, and Joe is getting a little out there.
Yeah.
But then, when the FBI files started coming out and some of the things in there she had talked about, it's like, well, how did she know that?
Right.
Unless, did Dwayne tell her that? Or
Right.
did she have some sort of access to the FBI files? But I
Right.
mean, Bruce talks about she had this ability to bully her way into being your friend
Yes.
and then to get you to keep talking.
Well, do you think so? She knew about the Heisen store, right?
Hmm.
So who was the agent? Was that when Larry Carr was the agent?
I don't think
No.
Larry Carr was giving her anything. I would be
That's what I was getting ready to say.
surprised.
Yeah.
I'll be very surprised.
I
I'm
think he's
sure he had to speak to her a couple of times, but I don't think that he was feeding her any information.
no, no.
But it
She's
is
I feel
possible that
for
she
sure.
got to somebody else.
Yeah. Enough phone calls. I mean, she was the cold call queen. Like she would call anyone.
Oh yeah, and like Jeffrey Gray mentions in the book, Joe calls and he's like, "Do I answer? Because it's going to be an hour."
Yes.
And I spoke to her on the phone two or three times,
Oh.
and there it wasn't. I guess I didn't speak to her. I listened to her talk two or three different times,
Yes.
and she would
Yeah.
just keep going. I
Yes.
wanted her to be on the show so badly, so badly. Like I was going to fly to Florida to do it because at the time I was doing all my interviews in person. And the first time I talked to her, I just felt like I couldn't, it would be the wrong thing to do to put her on the air, to put a microphone in front of her face at this point. If I would have caught her like 5 years earlier,
Yeah.
I would have done it. But the timing, unfortunately, just didn't work out. But
Yeah.
man, I wanted her on the show so bad.
It would have been your longest episode.
Absolutely.
Russell would have had a lot of work.
Yeah. Hey, Russell, don't worry. This one's only 9.5 hours,
Right?
but I only talked a few times, so
It's going
at
to be
least my
okay.
half will be easy.
Right. Oh, they mentioned gossip. I forgot that. Gossip in the book. I just looked down.
Yes.
They
I
talk
wish there
about,
was more gossip in there, but I understand why there's not, because Galen at the time was like gathering this all up and sort of like keeping it to himself
yeah.
because he was going to write a book. And another person I asked to be on the show. So, Galen, if you're listening, reach out to me. I still want you on the show. But he
Right?
told me years ago that he was going to get back to work on his book. And then when that came out, he would come on the show. But, that was probably 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah. Gossip. He's interesting. I like him. I don't
Gossett
think
is
it's
really
him.
interesting.
Yeah. He's everyone. All of them are interesting. Every suspect, person of interest are interesting just on their own without being tied to the case.
Oh,
I'd read a
yeah.
book about every single one of them. Well, most of them. But did you see that they talked about the Bay of Pigs? They
Yes.
talk. So did you think Skip? Like, do you think Skip or do you just think vortex coincidence?
Well, both. Both now. Because the first time I read it, I didn't think about Skip at all.
Me either. Me either. Which
But
is why
yeah,
the
and then
second time.
there's also a couple brief mentions about Air America in there.
Yes, I definitely picked up on those that I didn't pick up the first time. I just kind of like, oh yeah, okay, all right, all right. But this time I was like, wait, Air America, wait, Bay of Pigs. And then of course the one was it Flo? The guy followed her and said that he knew who it was, that he was a felon, but was in Bay of Pigs and stuff like that also.
I think so. That sounds
Yeah.
about right.
So it did get me thinking, maybe they could be talking about Skip.
Yeah, because not only does this book hold up, but it's sort of future proofed itself.
It did.
It's like,
It's
whoa.
like the Simpsons
Yeah.
of DB Cooper books. Who knows what we'll learn? No, I really enjoyed this book so much. And then to leave on LD Cooper, it's like, well, that's kind of fitting. But he's a good suspect now. I didn't think so before.
I didn't
But
think so before either, until the FBI files came out. But then it sort of makes sense to me why Curtis Sing and the FBI gave that story so much attention when it came out. Because they were holding cards we couldn't see.
yeah, yeah. So it definitely added fuel to her argument because they knew they had already investigated him and she was just kind of coming forward with this. Yeah, that's true. That's true. But he is, it could be. I doubt it, but it could be.
The hijacking. Every one of these books is probably going to have this was what happened in the hijacking. And boy, I'm not into that at all. It's just a struggle to read through, and they all have it, and it's all different. And there's so many errors in all of them, but in Skyjack, it's pretty good.
Yes, it really is because reading Into the Blast, I was like wrong, 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 like pages of like wrong, no, wrong. But yeah, this held up even after FBI files released. Although I know he saw some of them, but it's held up. It's been my favorite so far, I think. Besides Bruce's book, as far as non-suspect books, case books, just plain case books, it's been my favorite until Ryan's is released.
It's probably the most exciting to read of all of them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
There's a reason Jeffrey Gray is an author.
Yeah, he's very good.
He didn't do this as a side job. This was his job.
No, it's very good. And I forgot that he went with the Foremans to look for Barb's money.
I love all of those adventures because at this point, I've had a couple of those adventures where I'm like, I can't believe I'm doing this with these people. Like, what is going on? And to read that from his perspective, it's so crazy because it's like I'm doing the same thing.
Yes. And to do it with the Foremans, oh, that had to have been awesome. You can hear their voices when he's talking about them. You can hear their voices in your head. And you're like, oh, this had to have been so much fun to do this, to look for Barb's money
Oh
in the
yeah, when
wrong
he's
spot.
talking to Ron, I'm reading Ron in Ron's voice.
Yes, absolutely. So I think that's why the book means so much more now because I can hear these people talk in my head. Whereas before that was like, oh, it's just, a name that I'm reading that I don't know about, that I just know of in the case. And now I've actually met them or know more about them. That it really, I think, makes it more special the
Oh,
second time
so
around.
much more so.
Yeah, it was, I really enjoyed this one.
All right,
Uh-huh.
Jake. What did you think of that Jake storyline? The Walla Walla prison escape Jake special op
Picking
thing.
up on the, yeah. So, but that was, and I was just on that page. Do you think that that was part of Skip? Do you think that was, what do you think?
I
Do
don't
you
know,
think,
because put your tinfoil hat on. This one goes crazy because then you have sort of this puppet master theory, as Bruce and Joe would put
right?
it, where there was someone pulling the strings on this, and there was some sort of preparation. They knew it was going to be going on. This guy Jake in the book says that he gets released from prison. Jeffrey Gray says he checked it out and it was
Mm-hmm.
accurate. And
And
it's
he waits by, does he wait by the lake or the water for him to pick him up?
he gave the address. I think he's sort of near the grist mill
Okay.
in Woodland.
And no
Because it
one
was like
comes.
he was going to be on Cedar Creek Road and had to boundary all the way to South
Yes.
Amboy or something like that. And so
Yeah.
I mean, I lived there, so I'm like, oh yeah, that area. I know exactly where that is. But it's a tight area, the one he described. So it wasn't like, okay, this team has Cowlitz County, this team has Clark County. It was like a very specific tight area. It couldn't have been more than a few miles.
Really? See,
Yeah.
because not having, I've been there twice, but I don't know the area that well. So to hear that from your perspective of really putting this into kind of the location and narrowing it down that much, it does make you think that there is more to that one because that's right after the another Air America name drop kind of thing.
Yeah, and then you can also, if you want to get crazy with the Jake theory, is Walter Recca doing some sort of a similar mission? Because part of the Walter Recca story is he goes and gets like MK Ultra hypnotized,
Yeah.
and then this Jake guy says something similar as well.
So maybe that's what Wrecker was doing that night.
So is this another crazy operation where there are multiple people doing this? Like, that's where I'm like, what am I doing?
Maybe Wrecker was plan B.
Maybe.
If plan A didn't work out,
But then
Wrecker
is
was plan B.
now I want to know, like, was there more than one team? Because why would the area be that tight? It doesn't make
Right.
sense to me.
And yeah, I don't know what it's too vortexy. It just makes it makes you go down a rabbit hole that you're not going to get anywhere. There's not going to be any answer. It's not going to take you anywhere.
You don't think Chris Brower could find that guy?
Oh, Chris could. Let's get Chris on that. Let's get Chris on
Yes,
that.
Chris. If you're listening, which I know you are, at the end
Yeah.
of Skyjack,
Page
is getting
265.
released from prison. You've got to find all the people released from prison and Walla Walla on that date.
He could find that. He finds the most amazing things. He could tell us too of how many Dan Coopers were flying that day.
I have text Chris Brower a couple of times with crazy ideas or, hey, can you find this newspaper article? And like 20 minutes later, he's like, oh yeah, here's that stuff you asked for. And it's like, wow,
How does he do it? What is he searching on? Just the internet. He's just that good.
he's just
He's a
better.
sleuth. Way better. He's top sleuth. Top sleuth.
Well, he must
But
pay for like the newspapers.com thing. I mean, it's only a couple bucks a month, but
yeah,
I don't, I look for a newspaper article 3 times a year.
right. Same. I'm not solving this case. I'm just trying to keep up with everything. So
Right.
yeah.
I feel the same way. I mean, I have heard a couple of leads that I chased myself for a minute or two, but
Oh, same, same. Like they'll be like, "Oh, well, that's interesting. I might be able to look down that rabbit hole." But I'm not. It's not going to be anything that solves the case. I can help answer something, but not. I'm not solving it.
you're not going to chase the Jake rabbit hole.
I'm going to let Chris do it, and then I'll just read the Facebook post, and then that'll be handled. That's usually how I do most of things. Like if I have a question, usually Ryan's going to answer it. Chris will answer it. Somebody will find that answer for me, and then I'll be good. I don't have to spend all that time.
What do you think the odds are that it is some sort of giant operation versus a lone wolf?
50-50.
Okay, I like
I
that. I'm going to say I'm 75% lone wolf.
Yeah, okay, so maybe 60-40, 60 lone wolf, because there's so much going on during that time.
Oh, yeah.
Like, so it's something I wouldn't be surprised with. Like, we had our hands in everyone's pockets. So I don't, it wouldn't come back to be like, oh, wow, they were involved in that too.
Or
I
like
don't
when
think I'd
someone
be.
says the government can't keep any secrets. It's like, what are you talking about?
They keep tons of secrets.
I could show you 100 that were kept for over 50 years. People lived and died while this remained secret.
Yeah, yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised if it were. I would hope it wouldn't, because I think that would take a little bit away from it. And I'd be disappointed that they would put so many people, I guess not in danger, but affect them in so many ways.
I
We,
would be
we
disappointed to learn that it was a big operation, but I would still want to know who jumped.
oh,
If
absolutely.
if we learned it was a huge operation, but we don't get to know who jumped, that's the worst ending to this story.
Yeah. Because was it Pat the one that found that the CIA would hide money? They would bury money to pay operatives or something? Was it Pat talking about that, I think?
That may have been. I can't remember.
Which would bring Tina Barr into it. Like it would make sense if it were. Maybe Najib Halaby, maybe I need to read his book. Maybe he's going to tell me something.
Najib Halaby was meeting with Richard Nixon the morning of the hijacking.
Right? Vortexy, right there.
Yes.
Maybe he sent someone to, make sure that that meeting went through.
I think it was Nikki that told me about the Najib Halaby Nixon meeting. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And then I Googled Najib Halaby and he has a Wikipedia page and I clicked on it. And I was like, damn, that looks exactly like the sketch.
That's but who doesn't? But we do know, does he have a long skinny nose? He has to have a long or a skinny nose. Yeah, we do know that. But he does, because I did look at his Wikipedia page too, and that's where I found out that he's the father of Queen Noor of Jordan. I didn't realize that. So I was like, oh, it's interesting. So it could be all connected in some big CIA operative thing. It would be disappointing though. I'd rather it be a lone wolf.
Yeah, but I just love, why does everything have to be so vortexy? Just like Jeffrey Gray going to read the comments on the article he posted 5 years ago, and the one comment is Jake, the secret operative.
Right. And that makes me think maybe I'm going back to 50-50. Forget the 60-40. I'm going back to 50-50. Just because of Jake.
Because I was talking with Bruce, it would have been 2019 after CooperCon, I think. And he was going into the puppet master theory, and he's like, and you remember, of course, Jake from Skyjack. And I was like, no. And he's like, you read Skyjack? And I was like, yes. And he's like, you don't remember the Jake part? And I was like, no, I guess I better go reread that, which I
Right.
didn't, but I did
Yeah.
reread. I want everyone to know I read both of these books this week to prepare for this. So I'm fresh on my Skyjack.
Yes. Okay. So I read Skyjack last week and I read Into the Blast over the weekend. Yeah. So I am fresh. It is my book is now marked up and worthless. Um, but it's everything to me. It was good though, the pictures. Seeing Tom K in the pictures, I was like, oh, there's Tom.
Yeah,
And
the pictures in the book are great.
yeah,
I wish there was a
he's
little
good.
more of them.
I do. It was good though. He had good pictures. Like he had the seat and uh the actual airplane with the aft stairs down. He had some really good ones of the inside. And then of course Weber um had pictures of the sled test, the SR-71, which he even tied that in, which I've never been like a R&D specialty metals bandwagon person. But it did make me think twice just a little bit because he did mention the SR-71 and I didn't know if maybe he had pulled that from the files.
What I thought was really interesting is he talked to some like SR-71 Blackbird Museum guy or something like that. And he asked him like how common would it be for them to use that aircraft to hunt for a fugitive? And he's like, never.
Yeah.
He's like, it's extremely odd that they did it for this case and that they flew it more than once.
Yeah, a couple of times. And that it's a fast aircraft. I don't know why they would have picked it. It's
Well, because it had the most advanced surveillance camera
That's
on
true
it at the
because it
time.
can, that's right. I did watch a documentary on it. It's the fastest and it does have the best.
But that
Uh,
really made me think, like, why would the Air Force be willing to use the SR-71? It probably cost us taxpayers
mhm,
hundreds of thousands of dollars an hour to rent
mhm,
that plane.
to look for Joe Schmo.
Yeah,
Just lone wolf Joe Schmo.
he stole 200,000. I would bet my life the taxpayers spent 10 times that on the SR-71 looking for him.
Just on the maintenance.
Yeah, just on that plane. Those 2 or 3 flights.
It does, I'm going to stick with the 50-50 then because would they have looked with that for anyone else than
No.
someone? Yeah. Do you think then So do you think if it was CIA, some kind of conspiracy, do you think he still got away? Do you think he just like took the money and run? Or do you think that was his job and he went back to work?
I think it was part of his job if it's a CIA operation.
Yeah.
Because otherwise then you're going AWOL and then you did commit a crime and then they're going to find you and then
They
they're going to
will.
you never worked for the CIA.
No. They will wipe you from every database. Well, then maybe. There we go. That's maybe why we can't find him. He went AWOL and they wiped him.
He suicided himself
Mm-hmm.
or
Yeah,
he was
absolutely.
suicided.
Yes, due to his life choices. Um, but and I did like the update or just kind of the covering of the copycats. I forgot that he had covered those like Merlin St. George and Richard LaPointe and all of those. I forgot Everett Holt was a Quaker.
I forgot about that as well.
Which means it could have been anyone. You cannot just kind of, it doesn't matter what religion they are. They could have hijacked it, even if they are peacekeepers.
Yes.
Even more. I mean, I know he threatened them with a bomb, but he was very calm, cool, collected, supposedly on the outside. He could have been someone that didn't really want to hurt someone, but just wanted what he, wanted to get. He could have been a Quaker,
He could have been a Scientologist for all we know.
right? Brad's family's Quaker. So I always wonder about them if they had anything to do with it. But his grandfather is too old.
And he goes into the, speaking of calm, cool, and collected, Jeffrey Gray goes into the refueling of the plane,
Mm-hmm.
which I can't remember a lot of other books doing that.
No. Um, it's been a while since I've read a couple of these, but no, you're right. I don't think a lot of them talk about the refueling
Yeah, because
as
that's
much as he
something,
does.
we've known for a while, like, oh yeah, the refueling took a minute, but we didn't know the details and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And in Jeffrey Gray's book, again, he nails it.
Yeah. It's such, I mean, he did such a good job with this book. He, like I said, it took him 4 years to do this. I can't imagine trying to put all of this in order to come up with a storyline with, and then going back and forth between the different suspects. Like he deserves every bit of money he gets from the people buying this book.
Absolutely, he does. It's a fantastic book. I'm glad it was the first book I read on this case because if I
Yeah.
found a different one, I might be doing a podcast about something else right now.
Yes, absolutely. Some of them I've read, I just can't get through. But some of them are just kind of like, fiction where they want to tie in DB Cooper. Like what Final Descent was one. I actually got that title from Mary Johns. And that's just a, fictional book where, you know, there was a murder and it could have been DB Cooper and it goes into it. And I only made it like 10 pages in. And I was like, I can't do this because he even had the facts wrong from the hijacking.
You
Like
were
he tried
upset
to,
about the facts being wrong in a fictional book,
yes,
Nicole?
yes. If you're going to do it right. Like at least, keep it right. But he had it so wrong. And I was like, I can't. I know this isn't real, but you didn't even research what you were writing about. I can't finish your book. So no, I read like 10 pages and said I was done.
That's fair. I'm probably with you on that one.
But you're right. Sometimes beginning some of these books, they tell you the story of the hijacking. So yeah, you do find yourself being like, oh, I already know this. Oh, I already know that. Well, that was wrong. Well, this is wrong. Now, how much do I believe the rest of your book if you couldn't get this right? At least that's how I find myself sometimes reading them.
Oh yeah, you can't open up with nonsense.
I want
Save
the
the
facts,
nonsense for the end of the book when I've already
right?
committed.
Yes, get me in and then throw your conspiracy theory. And then I might be more open to it because I've learned that you know your facts.
I was gonna say I absolutely loved the way he ended the book, arguing with Joe on the phone about the most like conspiratorial, insane, mundane facts of the case. I think the final quote is something like, Joe, read me the goddamn recipe for cherry cheesecake.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I've been there. I've absolutely been there. Like I'm going so crazy now that I want to hear this insane thing that you have to say because maybe it could be something.
It is. I totally forgotten about the ending of that. Yes, it is. Like he's such a good writer. I wish he would come on your show. It would be great to like hear him talk about it and his research and everyone that he met and how he came up with it. That it is true though. Like because she'll from reading, she just calls and comes up with all kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
Pulls
and
you right
I've
in.
had so many moments where I'm like lying in bed and I can't sleep because of some crazy, insane DB Cooper thing. And then I'm like, what am I doing? What am
Yes.
I doing?
Oh, I'll spend a whole commute home from work just thinking about one thing and then trying to like disprove it in my head before I even like ask anyone about it because I want to make sure it makes sense before I text Ryan and be like, hey, could this make sense? So like I've been trying to like what was it on the way home? I was thinking about the Jeffries parachute and if it could be related to the money on Tina Barr somehow. And so I spent a whole 45 minutes on the ride home just thinking about the Jeffries parachute and how it could have maybe had some money in it when he threw, if the Jeffries parachute is his, which I love the Jeffries parachute. If he threw it over Maybe it had a couple, if I were Cooper and I was going to ditch my parachute, I'd throw a little of the loot in there inside the holder. What is that? The backpack part of the
The
parachute, the
container.
container. Yeah. I'd throw some money in the container, just enough, not too much. Throw it over the side of the river. If anyone finds it, he's dead. Like it would make sense. But it could probably be disproven.
And
Super
obviously he
easy.
wasn't opposed to throwing away some of his loot.
No, he was going to give it to to Tina or Flo. Well, not Flo. He's only going to give Flo the change.
Well, and that's so interesting because I didn't know that for a fact until recently.
Right.
And there it is in Skyjack. He offers Tina a couple of bundles, and then he offers Flo and Alice the change from his drink.
Right. And have you so like Ryan's new video just covered that. Like the first half of the hijacking,
I
and he
watched
also
it.
reiterated that. And I was like, oh, ouch, burn. Here, let me give her, $5,000, but here, you can have $18.
Yeah.
And you have to split it between you and the other one.
Yeah.
No wonder she's sour.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
That's a good point. I'd be upset about that too.
Mm-hmm. No, but yeah. But I spend way too much time thinking about it. And then, yes, most of the time I'll come up with something in my head and be like, oh, maybe this could totally work. And then I spend the next hour just in my head thinking, okay, well, no, it couldn't have been that because of this, and it couldn't have been that. And I just totally disprove it all in my head. And then I'm starting from scratch all over again. But I've spent like 2 hours of my life just trying to figure one thing out that didn't make any sense. And I'm still back at square one.
Oh, yeah. Or I'm at work and I'm not working. I'm reading an obituary from someone I've never met.
Yes, absolutely. So Orville Lyons. I love Orville Lyons. And so, he's in Delaware, I think. So, I'm like, oh, let me look into this guy. And so I found an Orville Lyons that lived in Washington State. Right. So I texted Ryan. I was like, did you see this? Like, how many Orville Lyons could there be? And evidently there were two. One lived in Delaware, one lived in Washington State. He's like, it's not the right one. I was like, okay.
Two
But yeah.
sounds about the right number of Orville Lyons to
But
exist.
totally reading his obituary, trying to see where he lived. Like, could this be the same person? Yeah. So wasting way too much time on Find a Grave, Legacy, all of those websites, reading up people, like you said, that you don't even know.
That I don't even know.
Well, I'm sure they would be happy to know that you were thinking about them.
Yeah, that's why it's there, right? So people could read it.
Exactly. But yeah, no, that was I did like this. They talked about what was this? Who was Benjamin Napie? Was that with he in that was the one, that's how Richard Fuller McCoy escaped. Right. Okay, that's right.
Oh, okay.
Richard, yeah. That was, I don't think I remembered that, how he had escaped the first time. They kind of were going down a list of names, and I think I have this right. I could have read this wrong. And he doesn't hear anyone go by that name. So he's like, oh yeah, that's me. That's me. And then he totally gets out. He was really interesting. And I thought it was really well played. I don't know if Brandon could see this far into the future. Well, I guess far into the past, when he brought his dentures to CooperCon. And in reading that McCoy fashioned his gun out of denture wax or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, so I was like, I wonder. That was well played. Well played, Brandon. Well played. That was good.
Yeah, and I liked that he had to get a guy to paint it for him because he couldn't do it.
I mean, it works. Yeah, the dental plaster. Hey, with the England brothers, they made it happen at Alcatraz with some stuff. So I guess that was the thing back then.
The whole McCoy story is so exciting and crazy.
Yeah. I really do want to read the book. I think, I'd like to learn a whole lot more about just him without Cooper being connected in any way, just his story. Because he seemed fascinating. He had a great, military record. And then, his felonies
Right.
were, I mean, it was interesting though. It was super interesting. Like it was like almost like a Martin McNally story kind of once he was arrested and stuff. So I would like to learn more about him outside of the Cooper realm.
Yeah, you don't need to make McCoy Cooper for him to be interesting.
Mm-mm, not at all. I don't think you need to make half of these people Cooper to make them interesting, but definitely not him. He made a name for himself even before his skyjacking. Just his military record is just phenomenal. The stuff that he did,
Oh yeah.
like he was fantastic. But I mean, obviously he had PTSD.
Oh yeah.
It's just rough. But I was trying to think, was it Ryan who said that Cooper's probably too old to have PTSD?
Well, we don't know that. What if he was in World War II or the
Yeah,
Korean War?
yeah, that's true. I think most all of these are probably PTSD driven, unfortunately.
Yeah, makes you a little impulsive and
Yeah,
miserable at the same time, willing to do something crazy. This will
yeah,
solve all my problems at once with the
right.
skills the government taught me.
I've survived all of this. I can survive anything, almost like the God complex kind of thing. Yeah, it's a shame. But yeah, I'm trying to think if there is anything else in here. Oh, they talked about the first particles. I had forgotten about the first particles in the tie and the paint.
Oh yeah, they touched on the titanium sponge and the
Mm-hmm.
the white flecks of paint or whatever they
Yeah,
could be.
yeah. That was I think Tom talked about that in CooperCon. Was it this year when he was talking about like, how the evolution of everything, how they thought it was this pollen and then it turned out to being paint.
Yep.
Was that this year in CooperCon he
Yeah,
talked about that? Yeah. His presentations are so good. I learned so much from them. He can explain things very well.
absolutely. He's a great guy to have on the case with us.
Yeah, I think the vortex has, I think everyone is fantastic in the vortex. It's full of so many good people that know, I mean, look how random we all are. Cooper's the one thing that pulls us together.
Oh yeah.
So that hope makes me hope that we can solve this case, but yeah.
Do you think we'll solve this case?
No, I don't think so.
You don't think it'll ever be solved?
I think everything's just a rabbit hole until we get the hair slide. Like I mean, you can go with the tie, but like where's the tie going to take you? And after reading about Barb and Skyjack getting her clothes from the thrift store, like in the beginning, I was a thrift store tie person. And then I was like, okay, maybe it wasn't a thrift store. And now I'm back at a thrift store because if she bought clothes in a thrift store, obviously people are buying them. The particles on the tie, there was the Hanford test site or the Hanford um, nuclear reactor or nuclear facility kind of up
Yeah.
there. I mean, what if someone that worked there just ditched all his clothes? That uranium's going to be on there forever. That stuff ain't going anywhere. So I was kind of like, well, maybe this is just another red herring. Maybe it is a thrift store tie that just came from somewhere of someone who worked at Hanford. So I don't know. I think it's going to take the hair slide. And I hope that it's Cooper's hair.
Right. Yeah. We don't even know that.
No, that was another like 45-minute drive.
Yeah.
Like I was like, do they clean the towel that was like on the back of the seat? Did they change that every flight?
I doubt it. I bet it's on for the day.
And then it could be anyone's. That flight started in DC. So no, this case isn't going to be solved.
Don't say that.
Then here's going to be like, some 15-year-old person that was in that seat, like on the first flight from like DC to, was it Minneapolis was the first?
Yeah, they're only 68 years old today.
Yeah.
We found him.
Right. I don't know. I hope.
Then I'll ask him if he wants to be on the show.
Right, exactly. Was that seat comfortable? Did you get good service? How was your drink?
Do you remember the stewardesses?
Right. It would be a good guest. Do you remember your seat back being clean? But I'm trying to think, what else? What else was on there that was good?
I think I got through all my notes on the on Skyjack here.
All right, let's see. Yeah, we talked about the Cooper comic. It was interesting that what Tina did talk when he tried to get Tina, she mentioned she didn't want to be part of the journey, which I thought was a very interesting quote of the way she put it, which, I mean, explains obviously people are knocking on her door and she just doesn't want to be bothered. But for her to kind of put it out that way, that she didn't want to be part of that, giving him credit or giving him any kind of notoriety for something that was so horrible to do. I totally understand that.
Yeah, it is sort of interesting to see what she has participated in over the years. Yeah. Like, the History Channel got her in 2016, and what do? They have her look at suspect photos.
They clearly have not followed the case. Was that the one? Which one made you say stuff you didn't want to say?
That was a History Channel one, but not the 2016 one. Okay.
Maybe
that was history's greatest mysteries.
Oh, that's right. I think I've seen that one, but they all kind of run together at some point. Yeah. Oh, but what I did love is during the book, Gray goes back to Porteous for more questions, and he's like, "I can't tell you. I'm writing my own book." He goes to Marla, and she's like, "Sorry, I'm writing my own book." He goes to Tom. He's like, "Sorry, I'm writing." So like whenever he goes back to get more information, multiple times he's like, "Oh, sorry, we can't tell you. We're writing a book." That was hilarious. What else is on here?
I'd need to compare I have a first edition Skyjack and the paperback because I wanted to double check to make sure that the ending was that same cheesecake ending in the first edition that doesn't have the afterword. But I would need to check the dates. I would be curious if Into the Blast came out before Skyjack did.
Yeah.
Because in my paperback, in acknowledgments, I think he lists the books he read, and one of them is Into the Blast.
It is. So it had to have come after 2011. Right? Is that what yours says?
Mine says January 11 on my Into the Blast.
Yeah. Yep.
But, okay, I'm so upset. Speaking of first editions, Into the Blast, the copy I have is the revised edition, which is the same one as you. So that means there is an earlier Into the Blast that I don't have that I'm very upset about now. Okay, let's get into the Blast. But before we do, give Skyjack a grade.
Okay.
A, B, C, D, or F.
Oh, an A.
I'm giving it an A as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
It holds up. It's a fantastic, fun read. His facts are correct. His story is interesting. He interviews people in the community, people sort of outside. Does a good job. I got no complaints about Skyjack.
No, I don't either. I mean, I think we need to come up with some kind of Cooper scale. On a Cooper scale of 1 to something, he's 5 of those. Whatever it is. He gets all 5. Well, someone will have to come up with something and tell us a Cooper scale on what is it on a scale of 1 to 4 parachutes. He's 4 parachutes. There we go.
All right.
Into the Blast.
Into the Blast by Skip Porteous and Robert Blevins. Like I mentioned, I got the revised edition, so I assume the book came out, and then they did the History Channel show, and then he updated the book. So now I have to, anyone listening that has a pre-History Channel version of Into the Blast, reach out to me. I really honestly do want that book.
Yeah, it was I had not read this book before. So this was my first time reading this book. I had a hard time. Well, it's Kenny Christensen. So it's hard. I guess it's kind of reading a book like saying it's Robert Rackstraw. Like it was hard, but it was interesting to learn about Kenny Christensen. But he had so many facts wrong in the beginning. Like I just had like wrong.
Okay, here's my favorite part is the introduction with Skip does a little thing, and then Robert does a little introduction, and Robert ends his introduction. I am going to lay out the facts and give you all of the information, and then you can decide. And then the very next chapter, he makes Kenny Christensen the hijacker. Like,
yes.
You're going to lay out the facts for me to decide, and then your first chapter, you're making him the hijacker. Not even what Kenny could have done. It is written exactly how Kenny would have done the hijacking.
Exactly.
What Kenny would have been thinking and why Kenny did this or why Kenny did that.
Yes. And at least, I can get behind him saying, Kenny would have done it this way, but at least get your facts right. He didn't have a sport chute. And he didn't have an emergency chute fastened to his chest. He must have been talking to Dan Greider and had some D-rings.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, he goes straight from, well, here, you decide, but now I'm going to tell you the story.
Because I was trying to think, is there another Suspect book that does it that way? Usually it's, here's the hijacking, here's the background of my suspect, here's why I think my suspect could have done it. I don't know that there's another book that is like, here's what the hijacking was like with my suspect.
Yeah, that was surprising to read. So it must be one of the other ones because Drew doesn't do it. Packer Jack doesn't do it for Skip. They just lay out information and let you decide for yourself. I don't remember about Bill Rawlins' book. I don't know if I've finished that one. I don't
believe so. I think Bill Rawlins has a chapter on how he thinks his suspect would have done it, but he doesn't introduce the hijacking. No, actually, Bill Rawlins lays out the escape, what he thinks the escape was like. But not the hijacking. I think Bill Rawlins gives you the hijacking, and then Bill Rawlins has a very specific laid out plan of Joe Lakich's escape.
That sounds right. That sounds like something I've heard before. Yeah, I don't think I've fully read his book. I think I've just kind of flipped through his book. But you know what I did find to bring it back to a CIA? He used a G. Gordon Liddy quote on the very first page.
Yes, he does. I noticed that as well.
That one just stood out. I skipped the Oscar Wilde quote and went straight to the G. Gordon Liddy. And I was like, interesting. Maybe we have something. But Kenny Christensen, like I said, this was the first time I'd read this book, so I didn't know about his history. He had a really interesting history. He was on what is that island where up in between like Alaska, up in the Arctic or something, where they would
Shimna.
Yeah.
The Shmoo.
Yeah, the Shmoo.
It's one of those things. I was just talking with some coworkers at work about this, about words that you've only read and the pronunciation is yours in your head, and then somebody says it and it's like, oh my God, I've been saying that wrong in my head for years.
Yes. So many times. Sometimes I'll go on Google or like Wikipedia and have them play it so I can hear like what is the
love that. I love that Google does that now.
Yes, and I'll play it a couple of times because I'll be like, no, that is not how I was saying it. I'm glad I never said that out loud.
Yeah, and
But
then he was on Bikini Island for a little while.
which that was very interesting. I had no clue he was on Bikini Island because that's very nuclear, obviously, with the bomb testing. Um, and then what else did he do?
Is
He
it
was,
safe to go to Bikini Island today?
no, I don't think so.
But he was there for a couple months?
Well, that's why they say they think he died of cancer.
Right.
Did he die? Was it pancreatic cancer?
Yes.
Yeah, so they think it was tied to that. It could be. I mean, I don't know. I mean, that stuff's around for a long time, like all of those radioactive traces, because they totally,
And he would have been there, what, late 50s, early 60s?
yeah, right as they were doing it, they totally evacuated the island. I don't think anyone lives there anymore. Like, I
Would
think
you
they
visit there? If I told you, hey, I'm
absolutely.
boat cruise to Bikini Island.
Do you know Chernobyl is my number one bucket list location to visit?
Have you seen a Netflix series called Dark Tourist?
No.
I would
Is it about?
highly recommend it.
Okay, I'm
It's
gonna write.
all I love this journalist. He's a New Zealand guy, David Ferrier, something like that.
Okay.
Made some of my favorite stuff. Love the guy. But he did this series called Dark Tourist where he goes to all these tourist places where it's a tourist attraction, but the attraction is usually dark. And he goes to Chernobyl
Oh, that sounds right up my alley.
and he takes this bus ride and they all have these like Geiger counters.
Yes.
And then the bus driver is like, once I turn this corner, all of your meters are just going to go crazy. And he was like, oh, yeah, yeah. And then they turn the corner and everyone in the bus, their meters go crazy. And everyone's like, go back. It's getting worse. It's getting worse. It's getting worse. And the bus driver was like, oh, you're really in for radiation now. It's
But
like,
that's like totally theatrics. Like I watch like I guess like lawyers probably watch law shows and they're like, "Oh, it's not like that. It's not really like that." That is totally like I've watched some of those before and they do like they'll put on these white suits and they say like this white suit is going to protect them from the radiation. I'm like, no, that's actually just going to protect the planet from you contaminating it from after walking in all of that radioactivity. It's just so that you don't take it everywhere else, spread the contamination. It's not really going to protect you, but they do. They make it really good theatrics by showing all of those things. But I've got to watch that Dark Tourist.
Dark
That is
Tourist. Yeah. It's
that's
a great series.
that's number one. Like I want to go to Chernobyl so bad. Like that is why I do what I do. My obsession with Chernobyl. And it's of course when the uranium came up on the tie, I was like, my two loves have just come together. I was in. If I wasn't fully in by then, I was in.
Do you think that DB Cooper had an atomic bomb?
No. Too unstable. Too unstable. He didn't have the right kind of that wouldn't work. But I don't think the bomb was real. Like, I don't do you think the bomb was real?
Yeah, I do.
Do you
I
now?
I am 70% sure the bomb was real.
I was until I was listening to one of your guests and they said something about, or maybe it was one of Ryan's, when Cooper was upset when they were trying to fuel the plane and he like jerked his suitcase, his attaché case or whatever. And I got to thinking, I was like, would you jerk something around like that that's could go off? I don't know bombs. So
I
like
don't know bombs very well, but I know electronics real well. And I I'm confident that I could build a bomb. And I'm confident that my briefcase bomb, I could throw it around, I could bang it around. I would have like a two-stage trigger on it, so it'd be like
okay.
armed. Now I'm ready to flip the switch, and when I'm jumping out of an airplane or throwing it at a stewardess or whatever, I it's not armed.
Right. Okay.
So,
Okay.
and like when I had that that bomb expert on the show who believed that the bomb was not real.
Mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm.
he was like, "Oh yeah, I would have no problem jumping out of a plane with a bomb I made." And yeah, it's not, especially dynamite. Dynamite can be thrown around. It's not, unless it's like old sweaty dynamite
Right.
that's much different. But if you bought dynamite at the hardware store that was made 7 months ago, you could throw that at your buddy as hard as you want, and it's not going to explode and kill you both. If
Okay.
you're
Okay.
holding dynamite, you could drop it and the room's not going to go up.
Okay. So I've moved back to 50-50. I'm 50-50 on most things in this
I
case. I
used to
can be
be
swayed.
I used to be like 99% sure the bomb was fake, but
Uh-huh.
now I'm more and more convinced that it was probably real in the I'm more convinced it's real for the situation where he can't escape.
No, and that makes complete sense. Like he said he wasn't going to be taken alive.
Right.
So, and I mean, you can't ambush someone with a bomb. They're going to win no matter what. So, okay, I'm back to 50-50 then. I can be easily swayed in this case.
Although with my bomb, I'm going to tell people right away that I have it hooked to a dead man switch.
What is a dead man switch?
That is if I let go of something or if I die,
Oh,
the bomb goes off. So, like
okay.
in,
So, see,
have you
yeah,
seen
I
Terminator
totally know
2?
nothing. No.
You've never seen Terminator 2?
No, I'm so not a
Okay,
movie
this
person.
interview is over. But
I'm a documentary person.
in Terminator 2, there's this guy, he gets shot and he's holding this trigger.
Okay.
And the cops run in and he's like bleeding out and he's like and he lets go of this thing, and as soon as he lets go, that's the trigger. The whole place goes up.
Okay, that
So
makes sense. That makes sense. That okay, okay. I
so
understand what
similar
that
to
is.
a
I didn't
hand
know it had
grenade.
a
So
name,
you pull the pin on a hand grenade
and
and
it
you
just
can
goes.
hold that for as long as you want. You could hold that hand grenade for a year, but as soon as you let go of that paddle on the side of the hand grenade, that fuse is lit and you only have a couple of seconds.
Okay, okay. So see, I learned something new today. I understood, I think, about what is it, a dead man switch?
A
Is that
dead
what you
man
called it?
switch.
Okay. I guess I just didn't know it was called that.
So when you're threatening people with your bomb, Nicole, tell them
Right?
that you have a dead man
I have a dead
switch.
man switch. Yes, absolutely. I'm going to get on that tomorrow. I'm probably like the least person ever to ever think about something like that.
How did we get to this spot? I have no idea at this point in time.
I don't know. Where were we on? Oh, because he was on Bikini Island.
Oh, Bikini Island. Yes.
Bikini Island. Bikini
That
Island.
led us to dead man switches.
Yes. But oh, I know this kind of jumps to the back of the book, but what is, like I said, this was the first time I had read that. What about the money found at his house or something? Like the residents found money buried in the back of Kenny Christensen's house. Was that for real?
I think it is an exaggeration of something that probably really did happen. Do I
Okay.
think it was a stack of $120 bills? No, I don't
Okay.
think so. Do I think it's possible that somebody put an envelope of some money in a tree for some reason or whatever, and some kids found it? Yeah, that seems pretty plausible.
Plausible.
But then there's
Okay.
also like there's that cold spot in Kenny's attic where they built a little box. Like that could have been for anything. It could
Yes.
have been at one point in time there was a brace for a chimney right there. It could have been they had a swamp cooler that rested in that portion of the attic. It could have been for anything. It's not,
Yeah.
you don't have to build a box to hide stuff in your attic.
No. And I
You could
found that
just lift the insulation up. It's money. It's not super heavy. You could rest that right on top of the sheetrock and put the insulation back down, and that would actually be more hidden than building a box there.
in something a little bit obvious like that. But I think like they really like, I was super disappointed in Decoded because I did used to watch that show. And I do remember watching it and them saying it was Kenny Christensen. And I was like, oh, I'm really disappointed in you guys. I thought you were better uh, sleuths than that.
Well, it's interesting from my point of view because the first time I read Skyjack and Into the Blast, when I put down Into the Blast, I was like, well, obviously it was Kenny Christensen, and I know it. I know for a fact it's Kenny Christensen, and all these other people out here, they're going around their lives not knowing who DB Cooper is, but I know it's Kenny Christensen. And then unfortunately, I went on the drop zone,
Oh
and
gosh.
here I am today, still
Yeah.
sucked into the vortex. But so I did believe it, and I like Kenny Christensen had exactly $200,000 in his bank account when he died. That was so compelling to me
Right. That's not
six,
true
7 years
though.
ago. Well,
Right? Was that
it is true,
truthful? Okay.
but
Okay.
then when the book came out, if you go back on the drop zone around 2011, 2012, I want
Okay.
to say it's like Georgia and Flyjack just go crazy on Kenny Christensen's records. And then it's like, boom, he bought this land in this year, and boom, he sold it in this year. He made this much money that explains this. And
Oh,
Into the Blast is sort of just like, well, he also had a stamp collection he could have put money into. And it's like, no, that was just a weird geeky hobby.
yeah, that was on the side. But I did feel like they tried to like anytime anyone was like, oh yeah, that, I guess that could have been. And then like when people didn't want to be involved anymore, he immediately was like, they don't want to be involved because they know something. And maybe they just don't want to be involved because they don't agree with what you were saying. They don't want to say this about their friend. But he immediately was like, they know something. It's a conspiracy. They know
Oh,
something.
and on the flip side, if he's interviewing you and you're like, yeah, I don't think it was Kenny, it doesn't really match, and I talked to him about his money a lot and blah blah blah, then he would put write what you said, but then the next paragraph be author's note. Nicole doesn't know what
Yes.
she's talking about.
Yes, he did write that. That was so true. He did write author's
Yeah,
note.
because there's like two witnesses that said something that completely went against this theory he's laying
Yeah.
out, and there is author's note. Whatever she said, she was mistaken because she didn't know what I
She
know.
didn't know what I know. That's true. I'd forgotten about that. But I do, I give him credit for driving up and sleeping in his car to do
His
all of those
Subaru,
interviews. Yeah.
which is pictured in the book like two or three times.
He loved that 87 Subaru. Wait, oh, I thought he had named it. He didn't name it. But yeah, and he was in Cle Elum. He went over to Cle Elum, right, to interview someone close to Cle Elum.
Yeah, the Mike Watson's wife lives just outside Twisp, I think.
Yeah, was it Katie
Yes,
or is it
which that's not her
Katie?
real
And
name. Which I don't understand why he didn't fix that in the revised edition because that Brad
okay,
Meltzer's decoded names everyone. So Mike
yeah,
Watson's real name is Bernie Geistman.
that's right. Yes, and well, and what's interesting too is he'll be like, "Oh, this is Katie, and here's her picture with Kenny
Yeah.
Christensen." So I'm kind of like, well, that really kept her anonymous.
Well, I
That
mean, if I have you in my weird obscure book that you know is going to sell maybe 300 copies, um, you could go by a pen name, you could be Veronica Johnson, and then but
yeah,
it's your picture. And so unless one of your coworkers buys my obscure book about the history of banjos, then they're not going to
right.
know that you gave comments to that book.
That's true. That's true because you wouldn't be able to Google search it because you changed my name.
Right.
Um, but and he talked about the tie. Did you see what page was that on? The tie clip and hand dominance, page 93. He said that it was likely worn by someone left-handed. And I don't, a man shirt button's different than a woman's shirt. And isn't a tie to hook the tie to the shirt? So
Some of
isn't
them.
it always going to be on the same side no matter what? Okay.
But I don't think with a clip-on
So
tie
like
you would
wouldn't
have
that
clipped it
always
to your shirt. I don't know. It probably would have been a personal preference. Some of those tie ones will slide under your shirt, like you're saying, and then it would have gone from the right hand side. But I mean, I've worn something similar and not attached it to my shirt.
So I guess it could be
So
on any side. And I think Ryan said that they would take it off and put it back on, like during, because they were two pieces of evidence. The tie was one piece of evidence, and the clip was one piece of evidence. So I think they would remove it sometimes and then put it back on. But he's trying to say that it was likely by someone who was left-handed, and Kenny was left-handed.
right,
Very
and then
Joe
he
Weber
had
thing
one
to
witness
say.
that was like, "Oh, I specifically remember Kenny's mother of pearl tie tack." Which is
Yes.
so funny because five other suspects. Oh, I specifically remember his mother of pearl tie tack.
Right. And I didn't know to bring back Jeffrey Gray. He went into the tie and the tie tack because he said the tie was J.C. Penney, but the tie tack was not J.C. Penney's, which I guess I thought it was a J.C. Penney's tie tack as well. But he said that J.C. Penney didn't sell that set.
I can't remember who I was talking to. It might have been Tim Collins that had found some sort of mother of pearl cufflink and tie clip set that like super, super closely matched Cooper's tie tack.
Oh, different from the one like we all have sitting on our bookshelf.
Yes.
With all of our Cooper memorabilia. But yeah, no, it was very interesting to learn about him, but it was also I just felt he was really reaching to try to put A and B together to make him Cooper.
He was going on this adventure to prove his theory, whereas Jeffrey Gray was going on the adventure to sort of learn more
Yes.
and to prove it to himself, not to prove it
Yes.
to his audience. Because Jeffrey Gray goes into it like it's obviously Kenny, and
Yeah.
then is Himmelsbach the first real interview he does in that book, and then Himmelsbach's like, no, I don't think so. I can't remember who it is, but
Yeah. It
he
might have
has one where
been.
he's like, well, if that guy doesn't think it's Kenny Christensen, then what am I
Yeah.
doing here? And he sort of doubts it by the end of the book that it's Kenny. And
Yeah. Because he goes back to Skip and it was like, Himmelsbach doesn't really think, that it's him or something. Doesn't he do that? And then Robert Blevins has Himmelsbach as being the FBI agent to the
yeah,
case.
he also says that Cossey provided the parachutes and that
Yes.
Cossey had the chutes at his house.
Yes. Like this was so many of the things I have underlined in this book that I'm like, no, that's wrong. No, that's wrong. Yeah. And that Cooper had specified civilian parachutes, which he
Right.
did not.
Where did that come from?
I have no clue that. And
And then
then,
he
no,
did. I forgive him on the one military, one sport shoot because that was canon in the DB Cooper world for the longest time.
that is
If you
true.
even go to my early episodes, I'm saying Cooper got one military shoot and one sport shoot
Right. Yeah,
because
I
I
do.
didn't know any
Yes.
better at the time.
No, exactly. And neither, I still don't know everything about parachutes, but I've definitely learned a lot more than I did like 5 years ago. I actually think I know some of the terms of things, and I know
Right.
about a D ring and a Navy versus an Air Force.
I can use all the jargon, but have no idea what it really means, what
No.
it does, what it looks like. But I got all the terms
Right.
down.
And I do know at least Cooper's was all attached, so he could not take his parachute off of his harness.
No Cape Wells.
That's it. So I was like, I do know that. But yeah, and he said a Northwest employee brought the chutes and cash aboard and left them on the side. Like, didn't Tina brought them on? Because one of the agents or one of the people who handed them to her, didn't they say that she's a smart one?
I thought that is something I noticed also, but I think what he's trying to relay there is like they carried them up to the stairs and then Tina grabbed him at the top of the stairs to bring him
And
on
took them
board.
in. Okay. Okay. I
Because I
think at
don't
that
think
point,
if I'm an FBI agent and I see 22-year-old Tina, I'm not going to tell her to come down the stairs and get the 22-pound money bag. I'm just going to walk it to the top of the stairs and give it to her.
that's true. That's true. But I think at that point in the book, I had written, I'd underlined and said wrong so many times that I was already like, wrong. I had stopped giving him the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, he said, he he said, now, oh, this I don't know. Each bundle consisted of $2,000 in 20s, but he said some were slightly more and others slightly less. Weren't they all the same?
I would think so. And even his reasoning doesn't make sense. Some
No.
were slightly more and some were slightly less, so that they would think it was put together hastily.
Yeah. What does that matter? I
What
guess,
does it matter? And I'm going to be looking at this money and be like, oh, yeah, it looks like they just put this
yeah.
together for me.
Okay. Yeah. This one looks a little bit thicker. Okay. I think I have clean bills.
Yeah, there's nothing to support that.
No, no. It was the his beginning of the book was really hard to read. But once he got to Kenny, it was much easier to read because I was learning about him. And then he did a twist and started talking more about things that he was really reaching for. And then
And
it
a
was hard
lot
for
of
me.
repeating himself in the book.
Yes, he did.
There's
I
only
felt
160 pages or
yeah.
something like that, and a lot of things get repeated twice.
Yes, absolutely. And he really likes to talk about the Decoded series.
Yes. So what is the first version of the book? I'm so serious. If anyone has
100
Mental
pages.
Blast that does not say revised edition on the spine, please reach out to me. I'll buy that book from you.
It's a book half the size of this because he name dropped that all through this book.
He name drops like the producers of the show.
He has a picture. He has a picture of like one of the cameramen or something. Yeah, the associate producer.
Yes.
He has a picture.
And it's like he probably stole that from that guy's Facebook page or something.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, here I am in Seattle. Isn't it cool?
Yeah, working on a show. And he's like, copy paste.
Yeah, and the name drops are weird. It's like, and then I spoke with super professional cameraman John Scotty. And it's like,
Right.
all
Yeah.
right.
And he goes on to say that how they make fun of like Ghost Hunters and all of these other shows to show that their show is like legit. Like it's not like all of these other shows on this channel.
Right. And the sense of importance that Robert has for himself in this book, in his writing. You know,
if we all could think so highly of ourselves.
yes. The two, Skyjack and Into the Blast, are very similar for multiple reasons. In Skyjack and Into the Blast, both have a Kenny Christensen sort of tie-in.
Mhm.
Skip Porteous is involved with both books. And both books are that author's sort of adventure interviewing these people and in the case.
Yes.
However, that's where the similarities stop.
Yeah.
Because Jeffrey Gray isn't like, I'm so important and I'm so great and I'm going to name drop this person and this is what happened and I did this. Jeffrey Gray is like this very descriptive, put you in the place kind of a thing.
Yes.
And Robert is like, let me tell you what I did and what happened to me and what I was thinking.
Yeah. Me. And it's Kenny.
And I brought her this wonderful gift in a 24-inch by 11-inch frame that I had made with all the pictures. And
that's like, right. And like she had it, like, did she hang it on her wall? What did she do with it? Because he talked about that a lot. He talked about it, like you said, multiple times, like he does. This book would be half the size if he just talked about things one time and left the many decoded things out. It would, I mean.
Yeah, because even before the whole decoded chapter in the book, he does like I'm going to give you a synopsis of my theory. And he just repeats everything in the book in that chapter. He just repeats everything that happened in the book.
He does. I've forgotten about it because I was reading. I was like, wait, I think did I read this page already before? Then I was like, no, he just repeated this. Yes. It was hard to read. It was, I'm glad I've read it. I think I would it was interesting to learn about Kenny, but it was hard to read. I'm glad it was a quick read.
Kenny Christensen, there's pictures in there. A lot of pictures in this book.
Lots of
Lots of
pictures.
pictures. Um, there are some pictures of him at Bernie Geisman's wedding in 68,
Yes.
completely bald.
Yes. I did see that.
Completely bald. Not a receding hairline, because there's
No,
a picture of him from the
bald.
front, and then there's another picture where like he's got his arm around another guy and you see the back of his head,
Yes.
and that
He
hairline
is.
recedes to below his like cowlick.
Yeah. He is bald. Yes. I don't know how. Yeah. No, like, and then he goes on to say, is he the one that talks about they say, oh yeah, he wore a wig or a toupee or something?
Yeah,
And I'm like, no, no, he's bald. And doesn't he have bright blue eyes as well?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I do remember seeing this picture that you're talking about. And I'm like, yes, he's bald. This is not Cooper. This is
But then he references, and again, shout out to Chris Brower, because I don't know if you saw this online, but he references, oh, there was this Bremerton Sun article that said DB Cooper was bald.
I think
And
I did see that.
and so I read that and I was like, I know who could find that. And so I text Chris Brower and I was like, hey, I sent him a screenshot of what I was reading in the book and I was like, can you find this article for me, please? And seriously, 8 minutes later, he was like, I found 3 articles about DB Cooper being bald.
So good. Like he just drops all of these things, and you're like, what? Like, how do you even find these things? The inside of PDX, with like the same year of the hijacking, the
With a
Northwest.
man in a suit staring out the window.
Yes, exactly. He's going to find a picture of Cooper. So maybe the case will get solved. I have faith in Chris Brower, and he's so nice. I've never met him in person, but he's so nice from what I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, from what I have interacted with him. But no, so okay, if we take out the pictures, if we take out him repeating himself and all of his name dropping on Decoded, it's a 50-page book.
I would agree with that. Without that stuff, yeah, you're looking at 50 pages.
So your original copy is going to be a 50-page book, I think.
And he also did this weird thing where he in formatting the book, it's like if he wants something to be a fact, he puts it in like bold and spaced differently.
Yes.
But they're not always facts.
No.
It's just like, hey, here's something you should know, but it could be
Yes.
completely made up.
Yeah. It's his, what he feels like is the same. Well, the whole like section about here's what it's like to be on the History Channel show, that's like 2.5 pages of that.
Oh my
and that
gosh.
has
Here's what it's like to be on the History Channel. That's so self-indulgent in this book.
Like it's, he just needed, because, okay, so he name drops Ice Road Truckers. He name drops, of course, Ghost Hunters and all of these other things, which I am guilty. I did watch Ice Road Truckers. I did enjoy that show.
Or he's like, yes, and then I went to go interview Katie, and they looked at my Sony Handycam 4286, and they didn't like it. So they gave me a professional, high-grade, high-definition camera. And then I went and did the interview, and it turns out they didn't end up using it, but they did save it for their archives.
Right.
What archives? The Brad Meltzer's Decoded archives of video?
Right. Of the show that got like canceled
10 years ago?
Yeah, they I mean, and a lot of these pages are just empty pages of just like one picture, and then you turn a page and then it's another picture. And he does though show the gift that he gave Katie Watson.
Yes. And in that picture, he's showing it to like the woman that runs the diner.
Yeah. Here, I gave
Look at
this to her.
Gift I'm going to give Katie. Isn't it awesome?
Isn't this great? I made this at home with my glue stick.
And then he's like, I've got to keep all this under wraps because this is a top secret interview. And then he's like talking about every single person he runs into in TWISP. He's
Yeah.
like, "Oh yeah, do you know Katie? I'm interviewing her about this
Yeah.
DB Cooper thing, but don't tell anyone, all right?"
Right. Oh, and I mean, he does. I mean, he digs a little dirt. He digs a little dirt. But I feel like these people don't want to talk because if maybe they don't want to talk about, sir, Kenny and his life. They just don't want to get involved in those things. They just don't want to talk about those things. And he's all like, he's Cooper. He's Cooper. That's why they don't want to talk about it. And maybe they just want to give him privacy about the dirt that he's just digged up on him.
Well, if I'm putting together a book about how your dad is responsible for the library in Albuquerque burning down in 1994, and your dad didn't do that. He had nothing to do with that. How much are you going to talk to me?
No, nothing. I have nothing to say. And if and if you're Robert Blevins, you're like, he did it. He did it. Your dad burned it down.
Yeah. Nicole wouldn't talk to me, which obviously means that her dad definitely burned down the library in Albuquerque in 94.
Yeah, because I made a long note to myself on the side of this column of how he is misinterpreting things just to fit his story of like how people don't want to be involved. And he's like, oh, it's because. And then the nice picture of Katie on the other side.
I forgot her name. I've been trying to remember it. I should have looked on the drop zone, but I knew Mike Watson was Bernie Gaisman.
Does he say it later in the book?
No, but he admits in the beginning, like, hey, this is the revised edition. If you want to watch Brad Meltzer's Decoded,
Yes.
I've changed the names in this book, but Brad Meltzer's Decoded
That's
is
right.
their real names.
That's right. He does name drop that.
So if you're going to do a revised version of the book and Decoded named them, which you're promoting the Decoded thing very heavily in this book,
Yeah.
why not then just scratch out Mike Watson and type in Bernie Geisman?
Yeah. If you already know that their name has been given out, then yeah, just do that. No, it's interesting. Have you ever met Robert Blevins?
Oh yeah.
Have you? Oh, that's right. He did your
a couple
podcast. That's right. I skipped over those. I did listen to a lot of them, but when it was like, this person is clearly not Cooper,
I've invited
I can't.
Robert Blevins back on the show many times, although I don't know how stoked he is going to be about this book review. But it's an
I
older
mean,
book, and I'm
it's an
sure if he
older
rewrote it
book.
today,
Robert, you did your best. You really believed in Kenny. And if Kenny was Cooper, this is a great book and you have great self-confidence.
and I really do like Robert as a writer, which I'm kind of surprised now, knowing Robert, that this book is short because I have received maybe a dozen 10-paragraph emails from him.
Yeah. And see, I've
And
never met him.
I like Robert, and I really want him back on the show. And he's been saying for the longest time that he has this autobiography, Cooperland. And
Okay.
if that got a release, Nicole, I would be lining up at midnight to get the first copy because I want to read that so badly.
I mean, he does a good job. He did a lot of research. I give him that. He definitely put a lot into interviewing people. He did not mind sleeping in his car multiple times in the snow. I think he worked hard on this book. I may not agree. Did, yeah. I may not agree with what he has to say, but we all have our opinion.
and Kenny Christensen was sort of fed to him. I'm curious how did Skip find Robert Blevins?
Oh, that's true because how did he find Jeffrey Gray? How was that in the beginning? Because he wanted to get in touch with Nora Ephron.
Right. I don't
and then
remember
how did Jeffrey get in?
It was something like they just knew each other and he wanted to tell him one thing he was working on, or he was working with him on something else, and Skip was like, "Oh, you should hear about this weird thing that happened."
Yeah, I know he definitely searched him out and handed him all that information. Because I guess Kenny Christian's brother spent a lot of money to find Nora Ephron twice, right? To hand her his script or his idea of
Yeah, not even
this.
a script. It was like, you know what would be cool? A movie about my brother being DB Cooper.
So would anybody's. Yeah, bless his heart. He, it's I feel for Kenny Christensen's brother. What was his name? Started with an L.
Lyle.
Lyle, that's it. I feel for him. I, he believed what he believed, and he was looking to get it out there in any way possible. And Skip went along for the ride. He was in.
He wasn't. I think it is it in I think it's in Skyjack where he's like, I'm 90% sure
Yeah,
it's Kenny. And that was
yeah,
when Jeffrey was like, I don't really think it's Kenny.
yeah. No, he was all in because I think what probably happened was he saw Jeffrey was like, I think I'm out, and then he went and find. That's when he found Robert somehow and was like, hey, I got this story for you.
I'm so curious how the two of them met. I gotta ask Robert about that.
Yeah, because I googled Skip to try to learn more about him. There's not a whole lot out there about him.
He passed away a couple years ago.
Yeah, yeah. Um, because I think they were talking about he had aphasia and didn't do any interviews for a while or
Yeah,
something.
because I reached out to him. It would have been like 2018 or something like that. And he's just like, I'm not doing interviews
Mm.
anymore. And just like a 2 sentence email response. And I was
Oh,
just kind of like, bummer.
yeah, yeah.
But
It would have
I
been
didn't know
interesting.
anything about his health or anything like that.
No, and I think I only found that I think from like a Google just to trying to find out about him because I didn't really know anything about him besides the fact that he started with Skyjack with Gray and ended with Blevins um, in a crazy. I think he just kind of went off the deep end. It feels like he got in and was like blinders were up and all common sense went out the door.
I think that happens.
Yeah,
Once you find a suspect and you've put in so much work to just, okay, well, that was wrong. I'm moving on is very hard to do.
yeah. I get that. And that's what's hard because I respect everyone's research and time and effort and everything that they've put into their person. Like I totally respect that. I may not agree with their decision of who it is, but and that's what's so hard to kind of be like, I don't think it's that person, but I know you've put a lot of time in that and I don't really want to be rude or disrespectful for everything that you've done. But yeah, I think it happens a lot. And I think it takes a lot for someone to come around and say, okay, I've gone down this rabbit hole. It's not this person. Now let's try something different.
Yeah, that's a tough spot to be in, especially if you put years and years into it.
Yeah. Yeah. And most people have.
Oh, for
Like,
sure.
like that's it's so I get it. So I get Skip and how much he's probably put into that. I get that, but it's hard. So I guess, I feel bad kind of being like, no, you were really reaching there, knowing how much they really believe what they're talking about.
Yeah, and even in reading it, it seemed like he got some contrary evidence to what was going on, and instead of looking at that, he's just like, I'll just put an author's note next to that.
Yeah. We're just gonna skip over that. Don't pay any attention to the man behind the curtain.
Okay, one glaringly obvious omission from the Kenny Christensen story and Into the Blast that was there in Skyjack.
Which I want to remember. I'm trying to think. No, tell me. Tell me.
Kenny Christensen housing runaway boys.
Okay. Yes. Okay. I was going to say that, but I didn't want to bring that up. Yes, he did leave that out, which I think maybe is why people didn't want to talk because maybe they were really good friends with him and they didn't want people talking about him in that way that could shed a bad
And we're
light
talking
on
about
him.
older people, and this would have been 2011, which
Yeah.
doesn't seem like that long ago, but I
It
mean, only
was.
one or two
Yeah.
states would have had gay marriage at that point in time.
Yeah. It was not widely accepted by people. So I think a lot
And
of that
especially if
was
you were
them,
in your 50s or 60s or
right?
70s.
Yeah. So it's not. So a part of me does think that they were just like, I don't want to be involved. I don't want to talk about this. Like, this was my friend. I don't want to talk ill of him or in any way that may cast some shadow that people may try to judge him in any way based on these things.
And I think that's a mistake to not include it because in Skyjack, when Jeffrey Gray goes to that his house in Bonnie Lake, he reaches out to a neighbor and is like, "Hey, do you happen to remember Kenny Christensen that lived here, died in '94?" "Oh yeah, that guy that had all them boys living with him."
I know, that's so hurtful. The way that they would think about that thing, you know, yeah. And you're right. It was less than 15 years ago. And look how far we've been able to come past that. But yeah, he definitely left that out. He just kind of glared over that.
Yeah, because in Jeffrey Gray's book, there he talks to one guy that ended up living with him for a while and was like, "Yeah, there were a lot of guys that came and went from that place," and I think he even says like some of them were like high school runaways, which is like,
Yeah.
oh, that gets a little
Well,
bit slippery.
it gets slippery, but you know what? He probably was just maybe helping them. You know, maybe he was just kind of giving them a home when they knew maybe they weren't accepted in their own home. Just, helping them out. I'm going to give him the benefit.
Yeah, I was never in the house, so I have no idea what's going on in there. Because by every other measure, it seems like Kenny Christensen was a pretty good guy.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, he seems amazing. And, they probably didn't want him judged on something stupid like that people would, look at and try to make all of these conclusions of, oh, well, it was probably this or it was probably that, when no, it really wasn't as nefarious as they would like to make it out to be.
But even if it is nefarious, let's say it's the shadiest thing we can imagine. We're not saying that Kenny Christensen should have won the Nobel Prize in 1971. We're saying that he hijacked a plane in 1971.
Yes.
So to omit another crime or a potential other crime, or even if it's not a crime, to omit something that sounds shady and slippery, you don't need to do that when you're pinning him as a suspect in a major crime.
That had the death penalty at the time.
Right. Lay everything out, warts and all.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. I hadn't thought about that. Well, maybe, he left he left out a lot of things that could have been included in this book about Kenny. He just,
Yeah.
I guess maybe it was more of a book of him researching Kenny.
There's a lot about him and not Kenny. It would be interesting if you could put this into some sort of an AI of like what percentage of this book is about Robert Blevins.
Right. But he does have a picture of Katie, right? Isn't that Katie?
Yeah. Gosh, I wish I could remember her name.
Does he say it later in the book?
No, but it came out online.
She was the ex-wife, right?
Yeah.
I guess we'll just have to watch Decoded and see.
All right. I'm now on Robert Blevins' WordPress. Margaret is her real name.
Okay. You're right. Like, if he knew these names were coming out on TV, he probably just like added in the stuff that he knew would make him look better.
Like, I had Dave Feudman on the show a couple of times. The first time I had him on, he was anonymous.
Yes.
And so he's on the show as anonymous. I like that episode is still anonymous.
Yes.
But as soon as he became public, now he's Dave.
Yes.
I'm not going to keep calling him anonymous for my own benefit.
No.
It's Dave.
Yes, he's come out now. He has a name.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, no, I agree. Well, maybe he wasn't thinking about that.
Or maybe it was too difficult to rewrite all of the book. Let's just rewrite the forward and the decoded chapter. Even then,
all 145 pages.
thrown in a couple of times through the book.
Oh, so many times. He starts out with it, he references it halfway through, he talks about what it's like to be on Decoded, and then towards the end of the book, he's back on talking about Decoded. He likes it. So he did actually probably have to rewrite a lot of this book, or maybe he just copy pasted into things his new adventure and didn't really even think about Katie and changing their names. Katie and Mike. Is Mike the Mike?
Yeah, Mike and Katie Watson.
Yeah. He probably wasn't even thinking about that.
And the whole like the missing tugboat log proves that Kenny Christensen was DB Cooper is such a crazy stretch.
Yeah, and it's Mike's log, right? Because he thinks Mike was the his accomplice and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I mean, but it did make me think, maybe Cooper did escape on a one of those big ships going out to sea. It did, and that was another 30 minutes of my time thinking about that. So it did plant a seed of that. But yeah, he really went off and really tried to put things together that didn't go together. He really worked hard on this.
Would you recommend this book to other Cooperites?
Sure. I think it's part of the journey. Don't you think? Would you?
Oh, I would recommend every book to everyone.
Yeah.
I'm angry when I talk to a Cooperite that hasn't read some weird obscure book that only I have. Why haven't you read that yet?
Yeah, I would absolutely recommend it. I mean, who knows? He may have a fact in here that could lead to finding Cooper. That it's not with Kenny, but he may have had a sentence that someone can tie to something else that may help us find him. I think it's definitely worth the read. I mean, Kenny's one of the original suspects, right? He's one of the first ones.
Yeah, I would say in the modern era of this, or actually forget that. In the vortex, yeah, Kenny is one of the OGs. It's probably Dwayne, Kenny, and
Barb.
Barb, yeah. Yeah, Dwayne, Kenny, and Barb. And then,
Rackstraw and McCoy.
yeah.
But that I wouldn't put anyone else in there.
Yeah,
For
I like
the
that.
original.
Dwayne, Kenny, McCoy, and Rackstraw, and Barb.
Yeah. Is that 5?
Yeah.
Do we have a canonical 5?
I hate that Rackstraw is in there, though.
I do too. I do too.
I
But
don't. I don't think
it's
McCoy was
history.
Cooper, but McCoy belongs.
Yes. It's history. We can't rewrite who they've interviewed. But no, I would interview it. I would recommend this for people. I mean,
What
it's
grade
an
would
easy.
you give it?
Out of 4 parachutes, I'd give it 1. How about you?
1 is probably the right answer. I kind of want to give it 2 just because I like Robert, and it was I truly believed it was Kenny Christensen for a little while.
And I can't fault you for that because I thought it was Weber. I started off listening to Tim Collins, and I was like, "It's Weber. I'm done. It's Weber." Yeah, I was telling everyone, "It's Weber. It's Weber." So I can't fault you for that. I mean, he can tie kind of things together. So I think, yeah. And I'm sure he's a super nice guy. So I'll give him a 1.5 parachute.
All right. For an average of 1.75 parachutes.
Yeah. I think that, it's good. It's good. I would like to have a version 3. I'd like him to update it. And, maybe if he kind of checks the 302s and, can change a couple things, make it a little more accurate, then he might get a 2 parachute out of me.
I think his stance today is that he mostly believes it's still Kenny, but he's open to it being someone else.
Okay. So then If I know that, he's got a 2 parachute out of me.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone who's open to change, I give a lot of credit to. So I'll give him a 2 parachute then.
Okay, here's the real question. What's our next 2 books?
Okay, so we've done these 2. All right. Are we gonna do I've read Tosol, but it's been a while. So we can do Tosol. And which one? Which other one do you want to do? I brought most all of them down. Oh, of course.
Max
Clara.
Gunther and Tucson next?
Yeah. I think that's perfect. Yeah, I've got them both right here. Yeah.
And those are both 1980s books, right? Tucson is 81, 82?
Let's see.
Gunther, I think, is 85.
84 is what's
84,
in this
okay.
one. And Gunther is 85. So 84 and 85. Yeah.
All right, Tucson and Gunther it is.
I'm excited. I'm excited to talk about Clara. Do you think Barb's Clara?
I want her to be so bad.
Me too.
I want her to be so badly.
I so want her in the case. So like I want her around.
And it will be really interesting because the last time I read that book, there was no affiliation with Barb and Clara for me.
No, absolutely. I think it's going to be really interesting. Even with I think Tosol is probably one of the more recent ones that I've read. So it'll be interesting to read that after having been to, I think I read that before I went to CooperCon 2 years ago. So it's been 2 years since I've read it.
Want to know something real weird about the Gunther book?
Yeah.
Let me see. For whatever reason, I have a bunch of them. I have 4 of them. These aren't my ones on my shelf. These are my 3 that aren't as nice as the one that I have. But I've got a friend that owns a bookstore, and someone donated a bunch of books, and one was in there, and he just gave it to me, and I was like, dude, that's probably worth like $25, $30.
Oh, maybe more than that. I can't remember no, Gunther I got for a good deal. I paid a little bit more for the Tucson book.
Because Gunther, this was a big book. They made a lot of copies of this.
Yeah.
But I did have one paperback, which I've never seen a paperback Gunther.
No, I've only seen the hardbacks. Yeah, because I think the Gunther book was not that bad, but my heart broke a little when I bought the Tucson book, because after I paid for it, I got it in the mail, and there's a sticker on the front that says $5. And that's not what I paid.
Well, I know you've heard me say it because I've said it on the show 9,000 times, but if I could go back in time and give myself advice about this show, the only thing I would tell myself is buy all of the books, because you're going to spend the next 4 years promoting obscure books and no one cares about them at all right now.
No, we're all going to be hunting for them.
Because someone was like, oh yeah, look at this copy of Real McCoy for like $800. And then I was like, I had to go on I can't remember if I bought it on Thrift Books or used on Amazon, but I pulled it back up and it was like, I paid $11 for the Real McCoy. I paid nothing for Tucson and Himmelsbach, and my Tucson and Himmelsbach books are signed.
Oh, that's fantastic. My Himmelsbach came from thanks to Ryan Burns telling us that I think his grandson sells them on eBay. That's how I got my Himmelsbach book. Because if you look anywhere else, they charge an astronomical price for those as well. But I think it was Ryan that said, look on eBay.
Is your Himmelsbach book signed?
No, I don't think so. No.
Okay, that's weird because a lot of them were.
Really?
A lot of them were.
I wonder if I try to order another one and send him a message. Maybe I can get a signed one. Because the only signed ones I have that came signed was the Hallaby book. But then I got Drew to sign and John to sign his. And I have Jude sign. He signed his Dan Cooper. But I think those are the only ones. I need to get Bill Rollins and Bruce Smith to sign. Maybe CooperCon this year. I'll bring them out. half of my suitcase are like Cooper books that I bring with me to CooperCon to get signed.
I'm so angry because when I met Robert Blevins to do the interview, I had his book in my car and I completely forgot to have him sign that book. And
Oh,
so it's
that's
like the
painful.
only in-person interview I've done with a Cooper author where I didn't have them sign their book. And I remember pulling out of the Auburn Public Library where I did the interview and just being like, I'm so stupid. I didn't remember to have him sign the book.
Yeah, that's all right. And I even brought Bruce's book this year, and I totally didn't get around to him signing it. I'll definitely bring it this year. Um, I'm excited to read that one again. That's such a big book. He did so good on that. I can't imagine having to like knock on people's door to get all that information.
Or writing something like that where it's almost like an encyclopedia.
Yeah, it's it's fantastic. I have that book completely marked up as if it were a school book. Like things are
As you should.
yes. Like things are underlined, highlighted, notes in the corner of the pages. Yeah, I can't remember. I think he actually was the first book that I read in the case. And then Skyjack followed very closely. And then I think it might have been Gunther's book because it's been a while since I've read Gunther and Tussaud. So I'm excited to read those again because I've forgotten so much about Clara and the actual, like, I know the gist of the story, but I forget some of like the little details in it.
Yes, and with the files being out, because the last time I read it would have been pre-FBI files.
Yes.
I'll be more excited about some of the minutia and small details in
Yeah.
that and different
Yeah.
angles.
Especially, yeah. I can't believe Gunther, like, he really was contacted then when Brian was talking about that, how he contacted the FBI. I was not expecting that at all.
In one of my copies of Max Gunther, there's a sticker on the inside that says $6.
I don't have any stickers. Oh, well, I just have that it was $14.95, like on the thing. I don't have a sticker. The only one I have a sticker on is Tussaud. And then there was another one. Did this one? Because a lot of these come from thrift books.
Yeah, my copy of The Real McCoy has the Dewey Decimal System on the spine and like Omaha Public Library, the folder
That's
for the
awesome.
checkout card on the inside
Oh, that's fantastic.
because it's a pre-computers library book.
Yes. Do you remember we used to have to memorize the Dewey Decimal System in school. Like I remember those days where you had to like because like the 100s meant this and the 200s were this and the 300s were that. I hated it. But yeah, we had to memorize the Dewey Decimal System in school.
Oh, I remember in school learning like, hey, you're going to pull these cards out of this chest. You're going to flip through them to find the book you want, and it's going to say 636.2334, and
Yeah.
then you're going to go find that on the shelf.
But it was fun. It was like an adventure. Now we can just like pull it up on our computer. Or they're alphabetical now or something.
Oh yeah, I was just at the library with my son and he wanted this very specific book. And so we just walked up to a computer that was at the library, typed it in, and it gave us exactly which section of the library it was in and the number and everything.
I do remember the card catalog. But it was fun. It was hard, but it was fun. Um, I don't think I have none of these have but a lot of them are thrift books that get sent to me. But I bought them off of Amazon. Pretty much all of them are Amazon. The only thing I think I bought off of eBay was Himmelsbach and then Ha 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 will be coming because I did find that one on eBay.
I have never read Ha 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 cover to cover.
Okay, we'll have to, that'll have to be one of them then.
Okay, yeah.
Because it's supposedly written by D.B. Cooper.
That's what it says on the cover.
Yes. But isn't there a kind of a nefarious story about the author? I think you.
Yes, I will proudly say, like, I'm not all about taking credit in this, but I will absolutely take credit for tracking down the origin of Ha Ha Ha. And like Blevins made a video or something about it, and he's trying to take credit for it, which makes me so mad because when I was like, hey, this is it, I remember Blevins on the drop zone saying, like, you're telling me this felon in jail wrote Ha Ha Ha? This seems so unlikely. And now he's like, well, it turns out in this, and this is exactly what happened, and I uncovered it. And it's like, I spoke with Judy Van Cleef. And it's like, no, you didn't. It took me so long to track that down. And then they gave me a fake name. And then I tried searching every variation of the fake name. But the fake name was close enough
Oh.
that with one of my intentional misspellings of the name, led me to a website where his name was misspelled once on that website to match my bad misspelling. And it was like, I forgot what they told me his name was. It was like, they told me his name was like Rod Atchison or something like that.
Uh-huh.
And so I was trying every variation of that, trying to find anything I could. And I typed something in and it led me to this, like a GeoCities website that was set up a million years ago where, to have an animation on your website was crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it looked like it was a 20-year-old website. And it was this plague of justice. And I went down that whole rabbit hole. I spoke to Stan Terrell, who Rod Addicts, the author of Ha Ha Ha, killed his father, which the worst way. He pushed a crippled guy down the stairs and then
Oh.
he didn't die. So he walked down the stairs, grabbed one of the crutches from the crippled guy, and then finished him off by beating him with his own crutch.
Oh, that's so horrible. Oh my gosh. And I think I remember that story a little, and I think that's why I held off on buying Ha 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 because I didn't want to support someone who had done something like that. But is he still around? Like, is he still alive?
Rod Addicts.
Yeah.
Supposedly he's dead. A couple people told me he's dead, but the first time I talked to Stan Terrell on the phone, he said, "Did you hear that he has passed?" And I said,
Okay.
"Yes, I have heard that." And then he said, "Do you believe that?" And I said, "I that's what I was told. I'd have no reason not to. Are you suspicious of it?" And he said,
Yeah.
"It wouldn't be the first time I heard he died."
Really?
Yeah, and I was like, "That's crazy."
I love a good fake death.
And I wanted that guy on the show so bad, but he was
Oh,
like, Darren, like, this is a part of my life I'm not excited
yeah.
about. I'm a very,
No.
very busy man, and you're lucky that I took 30 minutes to talk to you on the phone about this. And I
Yeah.
was like, okay, yeah, I do get that. Because even
Yeah,
though, like,
that's probably
I would
painful.
recommend you pick up Plague of Justice for your DB Cooper book collection, because there
Okay.
is, like, one weird chapter on the DB Cooper book thing.
Do I have some like odd ones.
But even on
I don't know
the
if I
back of
read them.
that book, where it gives like a brief bio of the
I
author,
have to pick it up.
he lists
Mhm.
his hobby as like racing yachts, and he runs like a tax empire. So he's not he's not spending his Friday evening with me talking about DB Cooper.
Okay, I'll have to get that one. I don't think I have that one in here. I do have a couple that you don't have, I saw on your shelf.
What do you
That
got that I don't have?
do you have Free Fall?
No.
Isn't that the story of the search for DB? What's the movie? DB Cooper, search for DB Cooper? Oh, why can't I think of it? What's the
The
movie
Pursuit
where
of
he?
DB Cooper
That's it. Yes, yes. Sorry, I don't know why I couldn't think about that. Yes, isn't this like the book that came from?
by
Free
J.D.
Fall?
Reed.
Yeah, look it up. I'm pretty sure Free Fall came that the Pursuit of DB Cooper came from the book Free Fall. I've not read it yet because I just got it in the mail not too long
Okay.
ago. Do you have Diary of a Hijacker?
No, I don't.
It's about DB Cooper. Hmm.
Who wrote that?
This is Richard Kavanaugh.
How do I not have that?
I don't know, but I did notice it, and I didn't want to brag on Facebook. But I was like,
No, you're just gonna
yeah,
wait till you're on my show to brag to me about it? Thanks a lot.
but I did see that, and I was like, oh, I think I have a few that he doesn't have. Um, but I think the other ones we have. You have Cooper's Loot because I think I got that from your list, right?
Yeah, I do have Cooper's Loot. There's like a newer children's book on DB Cooper where he has like a oversized head on the cover.
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure if I need that in my collection or not.
Know if I have that one. I have like a couple weird ones. I have Final Descent, which is like that's the one I was telling you about. It's kind of it's a fiction Cooper book. Um, and it's like a guy from Whidbey Island writes those. Evidently, he's written a couple of them, but only ones about DB Cooper. Uh, oh, it's not this one. It's a different one. The one with the big headed Cooper.
Yeah, I have that one. I had that guy on the show. I like that guy a lot. Tom Sullivan.
That's right. Yes, yes. I do remember listening to that one. That one's been a while ago, I think. Yeah, so I just got a bunch of when you listed yours, I ordered like 6 of them. That's when I got I was like, oh, what does he have? I wonder if I can find these. So yeah, that's when I got the Crosswinds, the Skyjack, Cooper's Loot. Okay. I guess I ordered a lot from your list. Getting the Truth. I am DB Cooper.
Joe Caney.
You had him on your show.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I like that guy a lot too.
Yeah.
Worked the Jimmy Hoffa case for a while.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Oh, I do have a library one.
Yeah.
Do you have this one? I think you have this one, right?
I think I do have that one. I don't think it's on my DB Cooper shelf right now.
Yeah.
Because I think my daughter was going to read that.
They have it marked as discard. That's painful.
But that book, that's like it's like an overview kind of a thing. It's not, there's no theory, there's no,
Yeah.
it's just kind of like, hey, here's some interesting things about the DB Cooper case.
Yeah. This is the first time I've like flipped through it. There's Barb. There's Larry Carr. Oh, look. There's Kitty. Yeah, it does seem like a pretty easy read short book. Yeah. I just kind of got a bunch of them in the mail from Amazon to try to catch up to you.
I'm so angry about that Diary of a Hijacker one. It has a great cover too.
It has a fantastic cover.
Why like, don't I have that?
I don't know. I mean, it's a really good one. It's what year is it? 2012. Like I said, I haven't gotten into it yet to read, but
it's a big book too.
It's a really big book. It's 383 pages. It's a decent read.
You've read that one?
No, not yet. No. He does, I guess it gives a brief history of the hijacking craze, the exciting years between the assassination of JFK and the resignation of Richard Nixon. So it probably covers a bunch of things. But yeah.
I guess I should have in my collection also that I don't is The Skies Belong to Us.
I just got that one in the mail. By
Brendan Kerner. I think there's 3 paragraphs about DB
about
Cooper
it.
in that.
Okay. That just came in the mail. It's sitting like on the coffee table in there. Yeah, I should have brought it in here. But yeah, I was like, let me bring my books in. But yeah, no, I do because I'll do like a search every now and then to see what popped up, and that's how I came up with this one. Because it popped up and you couldn't buy it yet, so I'd like saved it on my list. I think you could download it, but you couldn't get like a actual copy of it yet.
Yeah, but a download I can't look at on my bookshelf.
That's exactly. I like a bookshelf. I love a bookshelf. Like I said, they are like trophies. I have read it. I have read it. I have read it. They're little trophies.
I will get rid of a book that I've never read, but I'm not getting rid of a book that I did read.
Absolutely. And I have a hard time lending books away because I've become really attached to them because I'm like, oh, I don't know. Like, and I will dog ear a book. Like my books get worn because I want it known that I read this book. I'm not don't give me like a book, page bookkeeper kind of thing. I'm gonna dog ear it. I'm gonna write in it. I'm gonna use my book.
I was making notes in my phone, and my wife was like, "Why don't you just make a note in the book?" And I was like, "Well, not this book."
Well, okay.
And then she was like, "Well, are you worried that it's going to decrease its value?" And I was like, "No, I just it's my part of my DB Cooper collection." And then she's like, "Well, wouldn't that make it more valuable if it had your notes in it?" And I laughed and I was like, "Maybe to a handful of weirdos."
Yeah, for you. Yeah. Yeah. Read by Darren.
Right. This was Darren's copy of Into the Blast.
You could probably get a good penny for it. But if
I would
you
say
had
it's
that
worth at
copy,
least 4% more with my
oh,
handwritten notes in it.
but if you took those handwritten notes while you were interviewing the author, then I mean, that's for real. Because then you could like have an insight on what they were saying. That could at least give you 10% more.
That's true. Now
Mhm.
it's worth $11.
Yeah. No, but I think maybe some of these I won't write in. I don't know which ones yet. I haven't written in either Gunther or Tucson's book. I haven't written in those, but I've written in a lot of them. I don't feel bad about it.
My second edition of DB Cooper and the FBI is full of notes. Because that was like my podcast handbook that I had next to me for quite a while.
Oh, I bet. This is the third edition I think I
That's the
have.
third edition. The second
Yeah.
edition is like a brown
It's
color.
brown. It's the one that Grider has, right? The one he
Yes.
keeps.
And I remember I was talking to Bruce and Marty one time, and I was like, "Oh, I just need to get a copy of that first edition. Like, I have to have it." And Bruce laughs and he's like, "You're such a dork, Darren. The first edition was digital."
Oh. Well, you could print it out, put it in a binder,
Well,
have him sign it.
Marla's book.
Yeah,
I
I
read
don't have
Marla's
that.
book.
Okay.
If you want a physical copy of Marla's book, the last time I checked, it's some weird like print to order thing, and it was going to be like $88 or something, like a
Oh.
crazy price for the
Yeah.
book. And after reading it, I don't know that I need a physical copy that bad.
Okay. Okay.
It's a pretty, I mean, it's a good book, but there's less DB Cooper and more the story of Marla and her family.
Okay. Okay. Well, it's okay, so it would be like a 1.5 parachute kind of book.
Yeah, it's like you're writing a book about DB Cooper and you're starting with I was born in Redding, California in 1981, and then I went to school in Glendale starting at kindergarten, and then my family moved to here and it's like I'm on chapter 4. When does this get to DB
Okay.
Cooper?
So it's like a autobiography
Yes.
with
Yes, her book
a
is
little
much more autobiographical.
sprinkle of Cooper. Well,
And
she is on the cover.
she is on the cover. I don't know. It's more of like the history of her family, I would say, than an autobiography specifically.
Okay. Okay. So she's building a story. She's
But what I
building the
did
story.
like about that book is for some reason her family kept moving to all these tiny obscure towns in Oregon, Washington, and Idaho. And because of what I did for work, I have been to every single tiny obscure town in Oregon, Washington, and Idaho. So
Oh,
she
wow.
would name all these places like, and then we were in Grandview, Idaho, and I was like, I know where that is. Me and the 77 people of Grandview,
Live
Idaho.
there.
Yeah. And it's like, and then we moved to a house in Rose Valley, Washington. I was like, I know exactly where Rose Valley is. You take the road all the way from Kelso. It's not even a real city, but everyone knows it as Rose Valley.
But watch, 50-50 chance if it is LD Cooper. Watch that book like have all these secrets in it that we didn't pay
If it
attention
really
to.
turns out to be LD Cooper and I didn't end up buying that book when it was available, I don't know what I'll do with the rest of my life, Nicole. Just lay in bed every night. I could have bought that book.
You could have had that book. I know. I would put LD within the top 10, maybe. Maybe he's number 10. But, they did interview him. He had some reasons. He came out of a mental hospital and he's got the background that could be it, but I'll give him a top 10. Definitely not the top 5.
Although if I hijacked a plane and I was going to give a fake name, I wouldn't be like, my name is Mike Schaefer.
Right. I'm Sally Legg.
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit not as creative as you would think.
No, but maybe he thought he was doing really well. He wouldn't have to remember so much of a name. Yeah, just changing his first name.
If your biggest worry is remembering your fake name, this is not a game for you to play.
Not at all. But I am interested to see, like, the 302s, and I have a hard time reading them. I need to get a little better at reading them. But it is interesting.
I'm not reading them at all. I'm waiting for other people to read them and tell me what's on them. That's
reading
been
for Ryan
great for me.
Yeah. I'll let Ryan read them. He'll put a video out. I'll just watch the video and then I'll know exactly what they are.
Yeah.
Or
and
Mary
then I'll tell people that
Johns.
I read it in the FBI files.
Mary Johns is fantastic at those 302s. She just like grows through them. She's right there with Ryan on those. She knows those 302s. But yeah, I'll wait for Ryan to do a video about it, and then I'll learn about what the new drop was for the month. Was there anything exciting? He'll make a post.
Yeah, and Mary, hit me up. You should be on the show.
Yes, she should. She should.
All right, Nicole. So our next books are Tusaw and Gunther.
Yes.
Which one are we going to cover first in the show? Let's do...
You decide.
Tusaw came
it's your
first,
show.
Right? You said Tusaw was 84, Gunther was 85.
Yeah. We'll do Tusaw first.
Okay, yeah. Let's do Tusaw.
And I like Tusaw's book. It'd be good to read it again. It's like I said, it's been a while since I've read
Tusaw is a very easy read because the last 50 pages of the 200-page book are serial numbers.
Yes. Yeah. So it's like a 130-page book. Yeah, that'll be super easy. I can read that by the end of the weekend. And Gunther's book isn't that long. I still have pages dog-eared. I'll have to go back and read and figure out why I decided to save that page on it. But yeah. No, your show. I'll read it as you go, and hopefully I don't bomb.
Hopefully. Unlike this episode.
Right? Hopefully Russell can clean it up.
Oh yeah, he'll do a pretty good job, I'm sure. But I do want to thank you because I was toying with the idea of I'm going to read 52 books this year. That's my New Year's resolution.
That's a big resolution.
And then I thought, I don't know, that's not going to happen, and I'm just going to end up getting behind, and then I'll get discouraged, and then I'll be mad at myself. But if you're forcing me to read 2 books a week,
right?
By the end of this month, I'm going to be way ahead.
Yeah, I'll be your accountability partner.
How many books are you going to read this year?
As many as we read for this podcast.
Oh, and that's going to be all you're going to read for the year?
So, yeah. Until Ryan's book comes out, or, John's new book comes out. I don't know. I don't want, let's not put limit, I'd rather aim low. That way, if I go over it, I feel really good about myself. Like, I'll read 5. I don't want to have a goal that I might not attain. Let's start low. Let's say 6 books. I'm going to read 6 books this year.
Yeah, you're going to talk to me around CooperCon this year and be like, I only have to read 40 more books by the end of the year, and then I hit my goal.
Why do that to myself, No, I'll read, I'm going to read 6 and then whatever else comes out for CooperCon, whatever, Ryan's book, John's new book, if anybody else has a new book.
Oh,
for
and when
Cooper.
I say I'm reading 52 books, I'm not
You're
saying
not reading Cooper books. Yeah, no.
But I am counting Cooper books as books I've read.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's good. I mean, I have like 6 books on the side about the Navajo and uranium that I've been reading. So those were kind of on the side, but I read like 6 books at a time. I'll have a book in my car. I'll have a book at work.
My wife reads like 4 books at a time, and it makes me furious. Because I'll pick up a book and then I put it in my lunchbox. And so I go to work. Oh, it's lunchtime, or I'm going to take a break. I pull that book out. I continue to read it. I'm done with that book. I move on to a new book. The idea that I could have multiple books going at a time makes me so angry.
But if they're the same subject-ish. See, these are all of the
even
same.
Worse. That's even worse. Just finish one book.
Well, I did that for a while. I do that with Cooper books because I do find myself getting them confused, being like, oh, was that in this book or was that in that book? So for Cooper books, 1 at a time. But any other book, I'll have at least 3 going at once.
That's completely unacceptable.
But maybe I'll hit 52 or 54.
You're right. 54 partially read books.
Yeah. I've read the first chapter of all of these books. And then I can use next year to read chapter 2 for all of those books. But you'll learn.
And then in 100 years, you'll have all of the books.
I'll have all of them read. It'll be good.
All right, Nicole. I will see you next time for Tusa and Gunther.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
I am as well. Yeah. I really appreciate you doing this, and I think you're the perfect person to do this book review show with.
Thank you. Hopefully I can pull it off.
I think you're doing a good job so far, but we'll see what you do next time.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, Nicole, and we'll see you shortly.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
You can find Nicole on the DB Cooper Mystery Group on Facebook, or catch her here for the next episode of our book review series. Do you have family secrets that may help solve the case? Questions, comments, hit us up. You can find us on Instagram or Twitter, or you can email us directly, dbcooperpodcast@gmail.com. Links to all that in the show notes. Thank you to Nicole Legg for being the first person to join my book club. Thank you to Russell Colbert for being the first person to join my podcast club. Thank you to Darren Osadich for letting us play his music. I'm Darren Schaefer, and thank you for listening to the Cooper Vortex.
Here's a story we all know about a man many years ago. Hijacked a plane, so we were told. Then he jumped into the cold. Lights are burning and a cigarette. He's in the air, the stage is set. Polite and kind, the people say it's time to make his getaway. This is how the story goes about the money and the man. DB Cooper, they call me now. Catch me if you can. Rolled up in his coat-built tie. He's got enough to change his life. Where he landed, no one knows. But from this tale, a legend grows. Was a cold, dark, rainy night. As he walked, he saw light. Held his cash close to his side. Just needs to catch a ride. This is how the story goes about the money and the man. DB Cooper, they call me now. Catch me if you can. down to the bone. Look for a place to use the phone. Little cafe outside of town. He walked in, he just sat down. Met a man with a cowboy hat who told a friend right where he's at. Into the night he disappeared, and from that night a legend reared. This is how the story goes about the money and the man. D.B. Cooper, they call me now. Catch me if you can. 40 years, the secret's out. The story has been told. D.B. Cooper's done running now. He was 80